Hello. Welcome to the Punch Show. And let me see, got a chat. It is Harry. Harry, how you doing? I missed you yesterday. I wanted to talk to you yesterday about the whole NATO thing and Donald Trump's craziness there. This morning I turned on the TV set when I got up, got my coffee, turned on the TV set, and there was Donald Trump was having a press conference or whatever kind of press conference with Zelensky there. And he says, he's talking about, like the peace deal with Putin and stuff. And then he does this thing where he's like, and this one, and he kind of gestures like this. He's like, waves his arm over in Zelensky's direction. This one is hard to deal with too, or something like that. It was very denigrating and insulting to the man that was sitting right there. And I was like, Zelensky deserves the Nobel Peace Prize for just not reaching across and bitch slapping Trump right there. It was such a demeaning gesture. And this one, as though it's like his dog or his grandchild or something. Like, it was just like, what a dick. And I couldn't believe he did that. This is not how heads of state are supposed to behave. Zelensky kept his composure, but I wouldn't have blamed him if he lost it. He was a dick, and he's been a dick the whole time. Uh-oh. Sorry, my cat. You guys have met Huggy Bear, right? He has decided right now is the time he needs some attention. He waited for that. He's just totally, if you're on the profile, you don't see him, but see, there he is. That's Huggy Bear. Say hi, Huggy Bear. Yeah, that's you. Yeah. So anyway, I just couldn't believe that. That was such an offensive thing. Okay, I need you to lay down here, okay, buddy? Oh, I don't know what you want, but now is not a good time, my friend. I love you. I love you. Yes, I do. You're a good boy. Hi, call a dog. Do you like cats? My cat's name is Huggy Bear. We name all our cats after bears. Or all our pets after bears. We've had a Huggy Bear. We've had a Honey Bear. A Honey Bear was our dog. She was our first pet. Then we had a Winnie Bear named after Winnie the Pooh. And then we had our first cat was Care Bear. And now we've got Huggy Bear. And for a little while, we had a stray that we found the owner for, but we were going to call him Smokey. Okay, I love you too, little buddy. As you can see, he loves me. We treat our babies well. Okay, but baby, I'm in the middle of a podcast. Okay. Sorry. I'm sorry, buddy. I'm sorry. Can you sit down on the arm? Can you sit down right here? Okay, just stay right there. There. That's good. Good boy. You can have some water if you want. I don't know. Okay. All right. So I've been thinking about this. So Harry's trying to get us back on track. Thank you, Harry. When I talk about solution-based politics, I was looking at this whole thing with the Republicans, and they're talking about, their election integrity bill, the SAVE Act. And I think this applies to more than just this one thing. And they're giving up on any illusion that it needs to be passed to actually prevent non-citizens from voting. Like that's the goal of it. Now they're saying that it's just Americans are concerned that non-citizens are voting. It has nothing to do with the fact that they've been ginning up that fear on false pretenses for the last 10 years. But let's just take this to heart. Like, let's say they're right. Let's say there is this legitimate concern about elections and election integrity and wanting to know that the results are valid. Like, let's say that's why we need election reform, is because Americans need to feel like the person they're voting for, the system they're in, is going to honor their vote. And I think everybody here, everybody in America would agree that you should, if you're an 18-year-old American or older, and, depending on your state's laws about felonies, but if you're not a felon and an adult and you are an actual American citizen, like you're born in America or you're naturalized, you should be allowed to vote, right? Like, I think we can all agree on that. And let's say there needs to be some sort of process to validate that, right? Like, you can't just stroll up as many times as you want and just keep saying, I'm Bob Allen, and then vote, and then you come back later and you're like, I'm Joe Allen, and then just keep making up names and voting. Like, there needs to be some kind of authentication that a real person actually exists that is an actual American citizen that can vote. Like, there needs to be a real standard, and I think we'd all agree with that too, right? So when you talk about what that standard is, that is election integrity, right? There's no side that's I mean, I know Republicans have tried to make it this way, but nobody's sitting there arguing that non-citizens should vote. Like, this is not some Democratic ploy to get non-citizens to vote because for some reason non-citizens always want to vote for Democrats. There was a guy, a mayor in Kansas, I think it was Kansas, that just he was actually an elected mayor, and he had voted in several elections, and he was a non-citizen, and he pled guilty to this. And so there were all these MAGAs on this story I was reading on Facebook that were like sitting there talking about, see, this proves the point. This proves that, non-citizens are voting. And it's like, nobody's saying that non-citizens never vote. We're just saying that non-citizens don't vote with enough frequency to affect election outcomes. There, it's extremely small, like 0.00001% of votes cast are by non-citizens. So hey buddy, I'm really trying to have a podcast here. Can Daddy have a podcast? I know, I love you, son, but here, how can we set you down right here? I'm trying to, my cat has decided this is the moment that he needs affection. He was hanging out all by himself all morning. Then as soon as I started my podcast, no. Don't step on the keyboard. Here, we're going to try this. Let's try this. Sorry for all the chaos. All right, so I wonder if this is going to become a short. All right, there we go. I got him settled in my lap. So, then all right. So Raymond, before you start going in with attacks, can you just let me finish my thing? Because you're arguing with something that is not relevant. My point is that we get, like Raymond here is going on about, hey, smart guy, people can vote without registration. We're not talking about what the system is right now. All right, we're not talking about whether or not nobody thinks non-citizens should be able to vote, and there are different states that have different laws about registration, and we're not talking about that. When I say let's have a solution-oriented discussion, I think what happens is we get people that we too much of our discussion is attack politics. It's saying what's wrong with the other side, and it's not actually identifying if there were a perfect system, if this worked the way that it should work, this is what it would look like. Like, first of all, what is the goal that we have on elections? Like, how would you feel this is good for elections? Like, what is the outcome, right? So like if our view is, if you're an American citizen, you should be able to vote, then the outcome you would look for is only non-citizens vote, right? But at the same time, you'd also want the outcome to be non-citizens or actual citizens aren't negated from, the system doesn't become so problematic and have so many hurdles that it actually prevents actual citizens from voting, right? So like for me, election integrity means two things. It means one, only citizens vote. And number two, it makes it so that citizens can vote without encumbrance. And when I say citizens can vote without encumbrance, I mean citizens vote. And when I say only citizens vote, I mean only citizens vote. How do we balance those two things? Because some people seem to think that no matter if one non-citizen votes, it's okay to invalidate 1 million American citizens from voting. And some people would seem to, some people believe that other people believe that non-citizens should be able to vote. I have never met anybody that thinks non-citizens should vote. But if we're looking at people's feelings about election integrity and we want to make sure that election integrity satiates everybody, then we should look at both sides, right? We should honestly engage with the people that feel non-citizens are voting, and how do you satisfy this this feeling that non-citizens aren't voting? How do you make the system vetted enough that they can feel secure that only citizens are voting, but not make it so encumbersome that it prevents citizens from voting? So that to me would be the goal. You meet both of those ends. My problem with the SAVE Act is it leans so far into only citizens can vote that it prevents citizens from voting. So like there are round about 1 million people that just do not have birth certificates through no fault of their own. These are not people that don't have access to their birth certificates. They can't order a birth certificate because there is no birth certificate to order. The hospital they were born in burned down and the original was lost, or it was destroyed in a flood and the original was lost, or they were, for whatever reason, no birth certificate was issued when they were born. And why those people exist and how those people exist and all of that is really moot. It doesn't matter because they don't exist. And so there should be something in there that allows for those people to be able to establish that they can vote. And right now, the SAVE Act says that the states have to determine what that system is. But right now, it is July and the elections are in November, and there just is not time to do that. Like, to me, there's not sufficient time to set up a system and give people, due time to do whatever needs to be done. And there's no even discussion of how we go about doing that. You follow me? So if you want to have a bill that satisfies election integrity and lets everybody feel that our elections are secure and that our elections are honest, and that everybody, every American citizen who wants to vote can vote, but only American citizens do vote. Like, is there anybody that has an objection to either one of those goals? Because we don't right now. The SAVE Act does not satisfy both of those goals. And our current election system, to some people, doesn't match the first goal. Like, there are people that are not satisfied that non-citizens are precluded from voting in our current system. And, you can show them that they aren't voting, and they're just going to say that just means they're not getting caught. So how do you take care of that feeling, and then also take care of the feeling that actual citizens aren't being disenfranchised? This is what I mean when I say solution-oriented politics. Instead of getting into sides, instead of calling people stupid or these false dichotomies, oh, so you're okay with non-citizens voting? No, I'm not okay with non-citizens voting. But I'm also not okay with citizens not being allowed to vote, because we're so hypersensitive to non-citizens voting, even though there's no really established record of that happening. All right, so that, and this is just, I'm just setting up the first conversation for this, but this is what I mean when I talk about solution-oriented politics. A lot of the politics we have is there are different sides that have different concerns, and we just, rather than look at how we can resolve everybody's concerns, we just look at saying why our concern is more important than the other person's concern, or why the other person's concern is fake and shouldn't matter. So Raymond said, hey, blah, blah, people can't vote without registration. Yeah, people can't vote without registration. I agree, but that's not really the point of what we're talking about. Yes, you have to register to vote. Some states have same-day registration, but I'm not sure why Raymond thought I was under the impression you could vote without being registered. According to the United States government law in California. What government? Hi, kitties. Hey, kitty, how you doing? So no answer. Oh. Is being a felon in the past mean you can't ever possess a weapon? I don't know. I think some states have laws against it and some states don't. I think it depends on the felony. I think for some states there are, if it was a violent crime, like Donald Trump could own a weapon because his felonies weren't violent. But in some states, like if you have convicted murderers that are out on, they're on parole, no, they're not allowed weapons. So I think it depends on the state, and it depends on the state laws. North American federal government law is not what United States wants. I don't know what North American federal government law is. There is not any such thing as North American federal. North America is Mexico, the United States, and Canada. There's no law that those three countries have. I don't know what North American federal government law is about. And that's not a thing. When United States has been resolved, things will be different. I don't have any idea what you're talking about, Anthony. I'm not trying to be mean, but you're just kind of there's no cogent thing to discuss. We should have goal-based politics. Each government should have a national story. Where are we taking the country? Where do they want to go, and how are they getting there? Right. So when you talk about make America great again, define great. What does it mean to make America great again? Because too often it seems like the idea of making America great just means agreeing with Donald Trump. What if you don't agree that what Donald Trump is doing is great? For example, in the UK, Tony Blair wanted to reform the civil service. Gordon Brown wanted to get rid of poverty. David Cameron wanted to balance the budget. Theresa May want to get Brexit done. Even those things to me are but why? Why did Tony Blair want to reform the civil service? Like, what did he want to reform it to? What is the final objective? Like, once it's all done, what does the reformed civil service look like? Because people could have different ideas of what reforming the civil service means. Like right now, Donald Trump is reforming, like literally reforming the federal government. But is he making it better? What is your end objective? This is what I mean when I talk about solution-oriented talk. What is our goal? What are we trying to achieve? We spend so much time debating how we get there. We never talk about where we're going. Boris Johnson wanted to get Brexit done. Liz Truss wanted to cut taxes. Yeah, so this is all, how are we getting there, not where we're going. First, we have to figure out where we're going, right? We're never going to agree on how to get somewhere if we can't even agree where we're going. I think the idea we're passing the bill and it goes, perfect, this is the utopia we're going to end up in, is stupid. But we should have a goal. We should have a story, and the government is telling the country, and then they're explaining the policy that country is to that place. Hey, Revival, how are you doing today? Thanks for joining again. Businessmen are much more qualified than politicians. For what? What are businessmen more qualified to do than politicians? I'm not sure how. Are businessmen more qualified than doctors? What? Businessmen don't necessarily make good politicians. Politicians don't necessarily make good businessmen either. But I'm not sure even like what you're trying to get at there by saying that. Like, what does that mean? Like, and it's not really on topic anyway. What thing are you trying to say businessmen would be better to achieve than politicians? What is the goal? What is the destination? Say you get in a car, there's 5 different people get in a car, and then they're debating about how to get there. But every single person in the car, the destination, they're all thinking about a different destination. And so they all have different ideas of how to get from point A to point B, because they all have a different idea of what point B is. What I'm saying is we need to start having an agreement, having a consensus on what the destination is before we can start debating over how to get to that destination. Otherwise, we're just arguing about how to get to different places, and we're just talking past each other. So if we're talking about election integrity, first, let's define what election integrity means. Like, to me, again, I think it's a fair goal to say that only American citizens vote, but all American citizens can vote. And, with the exception of certain things like, felonies or whatever. Like, we shouldn't make, if our laws actually deny people the right to vote because they are so hard to achieve, even though they're American citizens, that law, the election integrity isn't there. Because the election integrity assumes that people whom you disagree with are allowed to vote against you. So then if you're like, oh, well, you have to prove you're a Republican to vote, and I'm not saying anybody is, I'm saying that this is why it's an issue. Like you have to let people vote. You have to let everybody vote. You can't start, you know, separating it out. And when you say you have to have a birth certificate to vote, there is a subset of American citizens who don't have birth certificates, were never issued one, or they were destroyed. Should those people be allowed to vote? So I think, I hope people are getting what I'm saying. Like, let's have that conversation, because I don't think that conversation is being had. I don't think the other side of that and to be fair, like with the John Lewis Voting Rights Act, maybe the Democrats should have entertained the Republicans more in the debate to get the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. The John Lewis Voting Rights Act was all about the making sure that everybody can vote. The SAVE Act is all about making sure only citizens can vote. How about we get a bill that says only citizens vote, but every citizen can vote? Isn't that the goal? Let's talk about how to get there. Do you think that war is going to start? Oh, with Iran, it's always been going to start again. It never stopped. But let's get back to that later. There are a couple of other things we can talk about later on. Trump has already said the memo understanding or whatever is over. So yes. Yeah, and he's promised to murder more people today. He called them scum. And this is the language of Nazis. This is what Hitler would do. He would dehumanize the people he wanted to kill. Because if they're not people, it's not murder. There's nothing wrong with killing scum. The only scum he doesn't seem to want to kill is the scum that was on the Lincoln Memorial reflecting pond. That he grew. I think the biggest problem with modern society and modern politics is that no one cares about policy. No one cares about policy. It's absolutely disgusting. I think it's, in a sense, people care about policy. They just don't think about it. People care about what their side is saying, what their side is doing. I think if Republicans are genuinely concerned about non-citizens voting, we should listen to that concern, even if we don't agree with that concern. I've been married. I just recently had my 27th anniversary. And after being married for 27 years, I'll tell you one thing that is key to a long marriage. And that's, if your spouse is concerned about something, don't dismiss their concern. And don't placate them or just pretend to validate their concern. Listen to their concern. And then address the concern, even if you have your concerns. When you're listening to their concerns, they will listen to your concerns. And then you can start finding a solution that resolves both of your concerns. Most of our fights have come because either one of us or the other of us wouldn't acknowledge the other concern. And I think that's a lot of the problem with our politics today. We need to hear what each other's concerns are, establish what the goal is, and then figure out how to work towards the goal. Instead, what we do is we just think about what our concerns are. We look at how we would solve our concerns without regard to the other concern. And then we start off on a path that might make the other person's concern even worse. And that's why we have a divided America. We need to start looking at things in a way where we look at what is the goal? What can we do where everybody's concerns are realized, and then figure out how we do that. A businessman who has been bankrupted. Yeah, I don't even know if Donald Trump is a businessman. I don't think you can call a con artist a businessman. His businesses really aren't that successful. Like, as Walter points out, he's bankrupted businesses again and again and again. His whole money making model is bankruptcy. Like, he makes money off of bankruptcy. And that was the CEO, that was the accounting expert that finagled all that. Donald Trump bankrupted casinos. You don't have to be a business genius to know how to run a casino. But you have to really not know what you're doing to bankrupt one. I'm good. I hope everyone is having a good day. We have headlines that is government policy these days. Nothing more. It's just a total hoax. That is an excellent recommendation, to be open to their influence. Are you in what context did you mean that? With the marriage advice I was giving, or with the politics? I think either way. Like, here's an example. This is, I woke up, or like last night, I saw this. The day before yesterday, Donald Trump was talking about the columns and the White House, and how they should be Corinthian columns. And he went on this rambling rant about how the old guy, meaning Joe Biden, probably never even realized that we need to change these columns to Corinthian columns, as though everybody alive has that opinion. And it's just like, obvious to everybody. And it's not. Most people don't agree with Trump, Then yesterday, after he goes on this big long rant about Corinthian columns in the White House, the scaffolding goes up. Now, one possibility is they were telling him that they were going to. So then after all the scaffolding went up, a bunch of people started yelling and screaming and thinking he's going to tear down the columns. And considering he's already torn down half the White House on what appears to, like, after he said he wasn't going to touch the existing east wing of the White House with his ballroom, he just tore it down one day. And just all torn down. All of a sudden, one day, east wing of the White House was there. Next day, there was a big pile of rubble. And so people were panicking that he was just going to destroy the columns in the White House, which this is like the quintessential image of the White House. The columns are like they are the White House. That's the majesty of the White House. That makes the White House the White House. And he wants to make the White House look like Mar-a-Lago. So then this scaffolding goes up, and we're all flashing back to when all of a sudden the east wing of the White House was wiped out. And we're worried he's going to do the same thing to the columns. He's destroying the Washington, D.C. that anybody has grown up with. He's destroying 200-year-old columns. All right. So then the White House releases this statement that this is just normal maintenance, right? And so you get all these people on Twitter going, oh, it's just normal maintenance. What are you panicking about? And there is a possibility that they were talking about doing this maintenance. And then that's why Donald Trump was thinking about the columns and, just did one of his weird things where he goes on a rambling, how he does. He just one minute he's talking about one thing, and the next minute he's talking about Arnold Palmer's penis. So it could be that that was just in his mind somewhere, and that's why he started rambling on about the how the columns in the White House should be Corinthian columns. Another possibility is he said that there should be Corinthian columns, and that's why the scaffolding went up. And if you don't understand that we were upset when the east wing of the White House got torn down just after he said it wouldn't, you don't understand why we're not, satisfied that just because this is regular maintenance, that the columns are maintained regularly, that this scaffolding going up the day after he said they should be Corinthian columns is going to go up. If you don't understand that he just slapped his name on the Kennedy Center one day, all on his own. He just decided his name was going up there. He's just decided to plaster the whole thing with gold plastic or whatever it is. He's been making all these changes to the White House without talking to anybody. So, to act like we're being unreasonable for thinking that the columns are going to be replaced on the spurious whims of a sundowning octogenarian with gaudy taste that's already done it several times, then you're not being realistic about what we think, what our real feelings are. All right. So if you want us to respect your real feelings about non-citizens voting, even though there's no evidence that they are, you have to respect our feelings about Donald Trump reshaping the entire city in his image as though he was elected king forever and not president for 4 years. We need to start having, I don't recall him running on reimagining the White House. And the money he's made is infamous. Yes. And there's the whole thing too. But I'm trying to make this about more than Donald Trump. I think Donald Trump has made things worse. But just in general, our politics for as long as I've been alive has always been about this side or that side, this position or that time. Are you for this or are you against this? It's always been dichotomous. It's never been about, here is a problem. Like, if you want to say election integrity is a problem, almost everybody would agree on one side or the other that it is, right? The right thinks that the election integrity problem is non-citizens voting. And the left thinks that the problem is citizens not being able to vote. And everybody agrees that the other side gerrymanders and that that's a problem. But why can't we have reasonable discussion where everybody sits down together? Democrats, Republicans, libertarians, independents, Muppets, whoever sits in the same room and says, how do we resolve this? How do we make it so that it's as easy as possible for American citizens to vote, but we still only make it so that we can have certainty that only American citizens are voting? Wouldn't that be the goal? No one fails 3 casinos, but the list of Trump fails. And the money he's made is infamous. Who gives a poop other than UTDS? But that's the point. It doesn't matter if you care about it or not. You don't get the MAGAs of the world want to pretend that what they think matters. And what the other side thinks matters doesn't matter. So we do care. We do care about the White House. And we don't want to see it destroyed. So if you want us to care about what you think, and and what our values are, or what your values are, then you need to care about what our values are. You can't have it just one side is allowed to have values and the other side has to get in goose step. Every tax-paying person in the U.S. should care. And people that don't pay taxes should care. As far as I'm concerned. That's our White House. It's not Donald Trump's home. He's not remodeling Mar-a-Lago. He's remodeling history. Most of the free world, actually. Where were you guys when the basketball court went in? Well, we were right here. The basketball court didn't tear down the White House to put in the basketball court. They put a basketball court on a partially refurbished part of the tennis court. And they restored it before they left. And it was done on private expense. It wasn't like Obama didn't like just decide to change the columns in the White House. Trump has never has even now managed to annoy Belgium, a first in 250. He's pissed off Belgium. He pissed off Canada. How do you piss off Canada? Canada never had a problem with anybody. He pissed off Sweden or Switzerland, right? He made Switzerland join NATO. No, you want to make everything about Trump. No, I'm not. Actually, I've barely talked about Trump, other than the thing that is about Trump. When Trump starts like tearing down the White House unilaterally, that is about Trump. But what I'm talking about here is about more than just destroying the White House. What I'm talking about is, what are we striving for as America? What are our goals? What is the thing that we want to do? This is existed before Donald Trump became president, and it will continue to exist after Donald Trump leaves the White House. So it's it's not about Trump, and I don't want to make it about Trump. You want to make it about Trump. You want to make it partisan. You want to defend Trump no matter what he does. He's the guy putting his name on everything. Like literally put his name on the Kennedy Center. That's not theoretical. Trump just ripped the lid off the container of fascism. Trump is an existential threat, right? Yeah, he is. I mean, like, Donald Trump did try to overturn an election. Like, you guys want to act like he didn't do things he actually did and that we're just, making hay out of nothing. He tried to overturn the election. He still is trying to overturn the 2020 election. Yeah, I don't want to make everything about Trump. That the whole point of this show, do you see Trump's name in the title? And you're trying to bring up things that happened years ago, Bob, unless you have time machine to go back and change something. Maybe try focusing on things happening now and in the future. Scaffolds. Yeah, the scaffolds went up after he talked about how the columns should be like. I don't know what is the hard part here for people. He talked about the Corinthian columns, how the columns should be Corinthian columns, and you'd have to be an idiot to not notice that. He said that 2 days ago. Yesterday, the scaffolding went up. He had already just torn down the east wing of the White House overnight after saying he wasn't going to do that. So you will have to forgive us if we're concerned he's going to tear down the east wing of the, or tear down, replace the columns. And if he does replace the columns, then you'll just justify it the way you justify him tearing down the east wing of the White House. But this, like, that's a complaint. What I'm talking about is a solution. Donald Trump is going to be gone in 2 years. You know what's not going to be gone? The debt. You know what's not going to be gone? Unemployment. You know what's not going to be gone? Healthcare problems. You know what's not going to be gone? inflation. Like there are things that exist. There are real issues that we have as Americans, and we can't even agree on what the goal is. So how can we arrive at the same destination if we can't even figure out what the destination is? What I am saying is that I don't want to just make inflation about Donald Trump or Joe Biden. Doesn't do anybody any good. What I want to do is say, how do we resolve inflation? How do we resolve immigration? It's a stupid thing to whine about. Okay, you are free to think that, but that doesn't make you right. That doesn't make your feeling more valid. You guys whine because Joe Biden, Fox News spent 2 days on Joe Biden eating an ice cream cone. I'm sorry if you think that Joe Biden eating an ice cream cone is terrible, but just deciding to completely wipe out the White House and rebuild it to look like Mar-a-Lago it isn't a big deal. Like he remodeled your mom. Well, my mom is cremated, so I don't know how he remodeled her. In the Bible, there are Gospels. Who wrote them? Not sure how that's relevant. Hi, Crisco. We are discussing politics. Nope, taxpayer dollars on the best. No, it wasn't taxpayer. Bob, I think you brought this up before. I want to elaborate on this because you keep insisting on pushing it. When Bush was president, there was a restoration to the White House that had been planned for for like 2 years, right? And it was like $150 million or something like that. I don't remember the amount of money, but this was necessary renovation that was, overdue. Like including things like getting it wired for the internet access and stuff. This was because broadband cable had been relatively recent at the time. And there were some other things with plumbing and all kinds of things that had just been kicked down the road for a long time. So in 2008, Congress approved for this funding to renovate the White House. And that was actual funding of the White House. And it occurred while Obama was president, but it was funded by Congress before Obama was even inaugurated. Then there was a tennis court, a separate project that was not part of this federally funded project that Obama had installed while he was president, and that was privately funded. If you don't agree with me, if you don't believe me, go look it up. We're not going to spend the entire show debating your lack of actual understanding of what happened. That is what happened. I have clarified it. We are moving on. And I am actually I'm the one trying to not talk about Trump. For the record, every president does a bit of remodeling. Only one went and knocked down an entire wing of the White House without getting approval. Socialism and communism is tyranny, and it could be the work of the devil. Always find a way to ruin humanity. Okay, do you know what a non sequitur is? AJ speaker. AI speaker? Are you saying I'm AI? No, I'm genuinely stupid. Jesus was a socialist immigrant. Trolling from Boston shut down the stream, face turquoise, and whatever. Trump protect Israel because to fulfill the Bible's prophecy. Hey, Crisco, if you want to participate in what we're discussing, go ahead. If you're just gonna spam and troll, then leave. And if you're gonna spam and troll and not leave, then we can help you leave. Jesus was just a non-union carpenter. That's the reason for the whole crucifixion. Yeah, let's stay on. Like, don't let the troll distract. Um, his spiritual advisor seems like that. The this whole thing about Hegseth's spiritual advisor, I think he had some kind of like really controversial, um, extremely racist interview. And this guy is still a guy that Hegseth, you know, considers his chief advisor. Where do you see virtual reality? I think he's saying I'm VR. I think he's saying I'm AI or something. I don't know. Was the commenter Fox News? What does Fox News have to do? I have. What is going on here? I have no idea what people are talking about. The whole world suffer with fuel prices just because Trump went to fulfill a. I think there are people on the right who want to fulfill this prophecy. For those that aren't aware, there's parts of biblical prophecy when some people deem to be the restoration of the temple, like once the temple is rebuilt, like in 3.5 years after that, or 7 years after that, or something, the Lord returns, and so like they need to rebuild the temple to bring Jesus back. I'm just saying, if that's real, God does not need Donald Trump's help. Trying to fulfill prophecy does not make the thing happen. The man has been doing this since before AI. Brought up debunked Fox News talking points. Just want to put his name on something. Are you talking about Trump? And debunk them, then revival. If O just said and CNN complained about Russia for months, does that disprove anything? I don't know what you're talking about. CNN talking about Russia for months. Russia interfered in the 2016 election. That's an established fact. Just saying Russia does not change the facts. I think, but right now, what I'm trying to do is I am trying to just, can we focus? It's like, my point is that we need to stop doing this kind of stuff, Joel. What is your end game here? What is the goal of talking about Russia right now? And the Russia, what is that? What is the goal? What do you want to achieve out of that comment? I think it was off topic, so he wasn't trying to take a lot of time on it. Democrats then stole $3 trillion from Social Security. Democrats did not steal $3 trillion from the Social Security fund. I don't even know some of this stuff is so weird. I don't even know what you're talking about. I don't even know how to debunk that because I don't even know what it is. No, Democrats did not steal $3 trillion from the Social Security fund. Like, stop being weird, please. Like, can you just not be weird for a minute? That's his fault for tackling it. Then, that Fox News or CNN talking point argument is lazy. I have no idea what you're talking about, Joel. If you haven't noticed, he's reading comments and replying. This is more of a discussion type. Well, yes, I bring up topics hoping that people will comment on the thing that I am bringing up. But sometimes the comments, all they do is talk about distractions. But then I also try to read the comments so that I can engage with the viewers so that it's a participatory program. That's why I'm responding to you. Okay, so you made an excuse for him using a really bad argument. What really bad argument did I use, Joel? Go ahead. Tell me what my really bad argument was. There's something about all the Jews returning to Israel, too. Yeah, with the these fathom if magas can't even fathom what $1 trillion looks like. I was thinking about this. You know, like the new defense budget bill is asking for $1 trillion. So like Elon, and this is like it's apples and oranges in one sense, but it's a really damn big apple and a really damn big orange. Donald or Elon Musk's net worth is now the equivalent of a year's spending of national defense, the largest national defense spending in the entire world. You made a comment a while ago. It was an analogy that made sense 5 minutes ago. I have no idea what comment you're talking about. I would really like to see less money in politics and more debate on actual topics. Right. And that's where I'm trying to get at here is it's like maybe we need less debate and more discussion. But we can't have a discussion if we can't even decide on the thing we're discussing. So like going back to what I was saying at the beginning, a lot of people that, you know, are here now that weren't then. Like my analogy is if you get 5 people in a car and they're all arguing about how to get to where they're going, but all 5 people in the car have a different destination in mind, then they're never going to agree on how to get to where they're going because they're all going different places. They all think they're going in the different places. So when it comes to our politics, when it comes to, the country, we need to have a uniform agreement on what the destination is before we can start having a discussion about how we're going to get there. We're just going to have a debate about where we're going and not even or how to get there when we're talking about going to different places. So, with the election integrity thing, right? Conservatives think election integrity means making sure that only valid votes are counted. Like you have to be a citizen, right? You have to be alive. Like that's their concern. Only valid votes are counted. The other side of the election integrity issue is that Democrats and liberals are concerned that citizens who should be able to cast valid votes won't be able to cast valid votes. Both the concerns are real. Whether you think they're justified or not is kind of moot. The concerns are real. Like the people are really concerned about those things. There are people that really believe non-citizens are voting. It doesn't matter that there's no data to support that. And I am not trying to say there is data to support that. There is that concern. And there are liberals who are concerned that if the more hurdles you put in the way to voting, then the harder you make it to vote, then it's going to limit people from voting. So you shouldn't be disenfranchising people because you've made it so hard to vote. And one thing is, I think it's just really easy, is with the SAVE Act, there are basically you have to have a birth certificate to vote, as it's written. There are other documents that you can use to show you're a citizen, but those documents require a birth certificate to obtain them. This is born American citizens I'm referring to. For immigrants, a certificate of naturalization is fine, but anybody that is naturalized is going to have a certificate of naturalization. There are a lot of Americans who were born here, but do not have birth certificates. And when I say they don't have birth certificates, I don't mean they don't have access to a birth. Like, they have to order one. Like there is a legitimate concern about that. There are legitimate concerns about, well, your name has to match your uh on the birth certificate has to match your driver's license. And so then there are things that people will have to do in order to get their registration accomplished. But there is a way to do those things, right? Like a woman can bring her marriage certificate and her birth certificate and register to vote. Or somebody can they don't have their birth certificate, they order it. They can eventually get one. There's some issues there about time and money. But without going into that, there are some people that just don't have a birth certificate. That they don't have one at all. They can't order one. It doesn't exist. Because either A, especially with elderly people and especially with elderly Black people born in the South, there was no birth certificate issued when they were born, right? So that's one thing. Other people, the other issue can be they were issued a birth certificate when they were born, but that birth certificate was destroyed before it was digitized, like through fire or other means. Estimates, as far as I can figure, there's probably about 1 million people like that in the United States. If you base, Arizona has had a similar law for 13 years. So there's been plenty of time for anybody that actually doesn't, can get a birth certificate to get one. And these are people that vote, like not just registered voters, but people that actually vote. So we know that if they're voting, they're motivated to vote, but they can only vote in federal elections. They can't vote in state elections. So that gives us a real precise number of people that want to vote enough that they registered, but can't vote for state elections because they simply do not have proof of citizenship. And so they have to check the box that says that they attest they're citizens. So there are people like that, I've seen a lot of MAGAs that argue about, what are you saying? Black people are too stupid and blah, blah, blah. No, I'm not saying that. So just don't even go down that road. There are just people that don't have birth certificates. You cannot show what does not exist. And you can't get a birth certificate, passport, without a birth certificate. So you can't show your passport if you can't get a passport. Do you see where I'm going? Right? So if you're going to pass this SAVE Act to satiate the concerns of the people that think non-citizens are voting, don't disenfranchise 1 million people in doing so. Have the discussion about how do those people who simply do not have birth certificates at all, how can they be allowed to vote? They're American citizens. You didn't do anything they didn't do. There's no reason that anybody should be allowed to vote more than they should because they were born in a place where no birth certificate was issued, or because a tornado tore down the hospital they were born in. So this is, like, to me, this is the destination. The destination is every American citizen who wants to vote can vote, but only American citizens vote. Boom. Like, if we can agree on that destination, then we can start discussing how we get to that destination. The problem is, right now, we've got some people trying to get to the destination of making sure only only citizens vote, and other people that want to discuss just how can everybody vote. And so you've got, the reason you've got so much debate is people are arguing about which direction to go, not what is the destination. Do you see my point? Like, do you see why? And this is why I'm saying I'm not trying to talk about Trump. We need to elect a QI specialist. I don't think Stephen Miller would qualify. that the commenter was wrong because Fox said it. Oh, can solution-based politics actually work? I'm not. So Revival and Joel are having this discussion that I'm just going to scroll past because so Revival says the streamer is trying to discuss this topic. So okay. Sizzle says this guy has no clue what he's talking about. How am what go ahead, clear me up. What am I saying that lacks clarity? Provide clarity for me. Joe, what did I say? I don't even know what you're disagreeing with. You just keep saying I'm wrong about something, but you're not saying what I'm wrong about. I have no idea. Anyway, Love One Trump JD. Did it? I'm not sure that, killing people is love, but that's not what we're talking about right now. Federal judge ruling on the E.J. Carroll case orders payment of $5.8 million. Oh, so this is, yeah, we can discuss that in a bit. I'm still trying to see if we can get on this page where what I'm trying to say is that we need to learn to discuss what the issues are before we can debate how we resolve the issues. We're so divided that we can't even have a discussion on what we're discussing. He really thinks people won't be allowed to vote because they lost a birth certificate in a tornado. He literally just said it. But that's literally what the SAVE Act says. Now, I mean, I am actually talking about what the SAVE Act. Okay, so since you're very, very vehement that this wouldn't happen, the SAVE Act has 5 different documents that if you're a born American citizen, you have to present. You can present any of these documents to vote. One of those is a birth certificate. The other 4 require a birth certificate to get. The SAVE Act says if you don't have one of those 5 things, it's up to the state to determine how you prove you're a citizen. It is July. The election is in November. So if this were to pass, there is not sufficient time for this debate to be had and for those conditions to be met. And as I said, in Arizona, this is very close to what Arizona current law is. And without going into a lot of things, they had this for a while. The Supreme Court said that they couldn't apply this to federal elections, but they could apply their law to state elections. So there is a number of people in Arizona that are qualified to vote only in federal elections because they do not have the documentation to prove they are citizens. And they check the affidavit box that says under penalty of perjury, I testify I'm an American citizen. Not one of them has ever been prosecuted for lying. None of them have been prosecuted for perjury. And if you take the percentage of voters in Arizona, actual voters, not registered voters, actual voters in Arizona, and you kind of prorate that across the United States, if the federal only elections in Arizona and you prorate that across the United States, because there's no reason to believe that people in Arizona are less likely to have a birth certificate than anywhere else, you end up with about 1 million people that just don't have birth certificates. And in the current legislation, there's no means established how those people can vote. So you can think I'm saying something ridiculous. And if you think that it is ridiculous that that would be the case, then you agree with me that it shouldn't be the case. But that is what the SAVE Act says. That you don't know that does not mean I'm lying or that I'm saying something silly. Maybe it means you need to learn something. That is what the SAVE Act says. So you also think we need to bring birth certificate to the polls from now on? I did not say. Are you saying I'm saying? Who said that? Nobody said that. All right, let's see. Let's test this theory out. Jay Sizzle, I just want to ask you a question. If you were born an American and haven't committed any felonies or anything, should you be allowed to vote? Yes or no? Just can you just answer that? Can you just tell me whether or not you believe that being an American citizen, a law-abiding American citizen, should allow you to vote? Your records are at a county record, not a hospital one. Yeah, well, sometimes those county, it varies. Like, and it varies by region, by state, by time. But there are people that, you know, the county records were destroyed, and since records have been digitized, it's less common, but it still exists. There's no like, I don't want to get distracted into why this happens. It just does happen. Why doesn't matter. There are people that just, through no fault of their own, simply have no birth certificate to access. If they pass the one bill that would make that a possible requirement. If it passes as it is right now, it will require proof of citizenship, and a birth certificate is one way to prove citizenship. It is one of 5 ways to, you know, to be clear. It is one of 5 ways to prove citizenship. But the other 4 require having a birth certificate to obtain. So, like, you can use your passport to prove birth or to prove you're a citizen, right? But you can't get a passport without a birth certificate. You can use, there's what is it called? A specific type of real ID. It's regular real ID isn't good enough. There's a type of ID that has citizenship on it. And I think if you live in New York, Vermont, Michigan, Washington, or Minnesota, those 5 states are the only states that issue them. They are for people that do a lot of traveling back and forth to Canada. Those are the only places where you can get a real ID. Most of your real IDs in those states don't even have that. You have to pay extra for it, and it's a specific type of real ID. You can use, there's a couple of other documents you can use, like some military IDs have citizenship on them. And I think there's a couple other things. But basically, there are people that do not have a birth certificate, so they can't get any of those other things either. There has to be a way that those people who, for whatever reason, don't have a birth certificate can still be allowed to vote. I don't understand why that's an issue. Why anybody would argue with that. My state is Waltz, so illegals will have no problem illegally voting in Minnesota. Well, that's a nice little made up thing to say. And I agree. Like, why are we even talking about that? What is the point? Everybody agrees that non-citizens should not vote. I agree, non-citizens should not be allowed to vote. And like, why, what is the point of arguing with that? This is what I mean. Like, we're talking about the destination here, right? My destination is only citizens should be able to vote, but every citizen should be able to vote. And so then you're saying, oh, but non-citizens shouldn't be able to vote. And it's like, you're like going, oh yeah, well, I agree with you. Yes, I agree with you. Only citizens should be able to vote. So why are you saying that? What's the point? What are you arguing with? It's annoying that I have find a way to show I'm a citizen when I am showing I am to vote. I am a citizen to vote for the last 20 years. Yes, for most states, there's already, for most people, they've already proved they're a citizen. It's sort of a lot of this is a straw man, right? There's only 1,400 cases of voter fraud, period, including non-citizens voting. Non-citizens voting is a subset, a very small subset of a very small set of people that have voted illegally. Because voting illegally doesn't really have much benefit. It's like if a state or like if a bank only had $1 in it, nobody's going to go rob that bank and risk spending 30 years in prison for the reward of $1. Right? Like the reward for voting illegally is an extra vote. That's all it is. And you end up spending like 5 years in prison for doing it. It's a very high risk reward. Like the risk is big, the reward is tiny. So people really aren't incentivized to do it. If you look at the 1,400 cases, for the most part, they're in like little tiny towns where you can cheat and you can win, you can change the election by cheating. And a lot of those are by the people that were on the ballot and they stuffed the ballot. There's actually not a lot of in-person voter fraud in federal elections. And probably, I've gone through and I've read through what a lot of the cases are, and it happens on both sides, both Republicans and Democrats. One of the main things that'll happen is somebody's spouse will have died, and then the dead spouse will vote, or the living spouse will vote for the dead spouse. There are some people that vote illegally. They like register from the wrong like they moved and they're registering with the wrong address. Ken Paxton has actually prosecuted people for doing that, and now it comes out that he's actually been doing that for the last 2 years. I wonder if Ken Paxton is going to prosecute himself for doing the exact same thing he prosecuted other people for doing. But anyway, as Oscar says, most of us have already shown that we have our IDs. I'm more concerned that people don't have that proof and they should be able to vote. I don't understand. Like, why can't the people that support the SAVE Act say, that's a valid concern? Do you think that every citizen should be able to vote? Yes or no? I made sure to get all my freedom papers last year and have copies and safes and undisclosed locations. Felt the need to do it. And it's probably not it's probably a good move. You might need to get a passport too. Even without having students that were destroyed prior to being digitized, I think she meant records that were destroyed prior to being digitized. It took me months to replace documents after a fire last year. I literally had to start by contacting my high school to get my high school transcripts in order to have something to help prove who I am, despite having an old driver's license and my social security card. It's not that easy. And then, hey, Brett, Brett says it took me months to get my documents because mine were digitized incorrectly. Somebody made a typo. That's another thing. Some people just made a typo. I don't think Brett's the only person in America that had that issue. And this is, I look at it, there are different categories of hurdles, right? There are some, like kind of 1 foot hurdles, right? Like, okay, so you got some kid that goes to school at Texas A&M and he's from Austin, right? And so he has like, this drive, and he goes to school at Texas A&M. he wants to register to vote. He actually has to drive home to Austin to get his birth certificate because his parents wanted to keep his birth certificate in their little fireproof safe. And, they don't want him to lose it. That's one category of hurdle, right? It's not insurmountable, but it's inconvenient. The second hurdle is people that it's just lost. They've looked everywhere, they can't find it, and they have to order it or go and get it in person. If you go and get it in person, you have to live in the same state that you were born in, which not everybody does. I was born in Louisiana. I live in Texas. And so I'm registered to vote. I don't have to worry about re-registering or anything, but I'm like mow the lawn there. I kind of figured, I better go reorder it so that I have it in case I need it. And so it's going to cost me $50. Like, it's only $15 for the birth certificate, but $15 for the fee and $15 for, like a processing fee. And anyway, it ends up being $53.18 for me to get my birth certificate. And it's an 8 to 10 week wait. Right? You can do like a rush delivery and it's like an extra $70 or whatever. Right? That's where I think the important thing is to look into. There's this time frame, right? It's July. If this thing got passed now, it'd be August before it goes into effect. So August, September, November, you got 3 months. Then the state has to decide what sort of, what's allowed and what's not allowed. So you're going to end up some people just aren't going to have time to do it, even though there's something. So if you are going to pass it, at least say it takes effect in the next election, not this one. Right? So that's number 2. But Donald Trump is in a rush to get this done because he doesn't want to get impeached again. Then there's the third level of hurdle. And the third level of hurdle is like Brett, right? Like the birth certificate is out there. It was issued, but for various reasons beyond the person that needs it, it's like hard to find. They have to go through extra steps to find it. Eventually, Brett was able to hunt it down. Somebody figured out that the date, if I remember right, like his birth date was entered wrong or something, right? And then there's the fourth category, which is they just don't exist at all. Betsy was an 80-year-old black woman born in, rural Georgia in the 1930s. She's done nothing wrong. Like, what was she supposed to do? Pop out of the womb and say, hey, don't forget about my birth certificate. Like, she didn't do anything wrong. A birth certificate was never issued. Or, wherever the birth certificate was being destroyed, was being preserved, got destroyed in 1975, before anything was digitized. And so they just simply don't have a birth certificate. Right? You cannot get what does not exist. And so there needs to be some means by which that person can vote, right? And that needs to be spelled out specifically in the law. Can't just be some vague abstract thing left saying, okay, states, you go solve it. If you're an American citizen, you should be allowed to vote, period. I don't understand why anybody would have a problem with that. Just like I don't think anybody has a problem with saying, if you're not a citizen, you shouldn't be allowed to vote. The one exception to that, when there's some confusion that happens, where there are some places where non-citizens are allowed to vote in school board elections because they actually, like they're lawful residents, their kids are citizens, and their kids go to that school, right? So they should have a say, just like every other parent, in their child's education. They have this, yeah, they like it's not about the rights of a citizen at that point, it's about the rights of a parent. That's that's the thinking. I think that's a legitimate thinking, different discussion, but for the most part for federal elections, nobody is arguing that you should be allowed to vote as a non-citizen. Nobody thinks that should happen. The thing we should be discussing is how do we minimize non-citizens voting while making it as easy as possible for American citizens to vote. It is a pain to get them all. DMV alone requires 6 points of proof. Not to mention, nobody wants to go to DMV. DMV, I guarantee you, if there is a hell, it is just DMV. Yeah, you just spend eternity in DMV. Personally, and in Chicago DMV specifically, personally, I think the number of people without birth certificates, I feel like it would, but that would be crazy to try and figure out an exact number on that. Yeah, that's why I'm just, using what we do know. I'm using Arizona as a barometer because what we know is that I forget what it is, what the exact number is. It's like 35,000 or something. But if you take the percentage of Arizona voters that are federal only voters, that means that they want to vote, that they did vote, but that they didn't have the documentation after 13 years, right? So this is not like after 13 days. So it kind of, the people that can jump the hurdles, they've had time to jump the hurdles. And they've had time to get their birth certificate or whatever. These are people that just, you can assume most of them just the birth certificate is unobtainable. 13 years is a long time to get a birth certificate. And so if you take that percentage of federal only voters in Arizona and you apply that to the number of people who voted in the 2024 election, you get about 1 million people that wouldn't be able to vote under the SAVE Act. And that's if there was time to, get a birth certificate. I had to wait a couple of months to get the transcripts and then use that to help get my birth certificate, which also took a couple of months. Then after that, I had to get my marriage certificate. And this is what I mean. Like, there are hurdles. Like, it's not that Revival couldn't get those things. If this law were passed and she were not already ahead of it, then she wouldn't be able to vote, even though she's a citizen. She didn't do anything wrong. If you are registered for the Selective Service and you are at least 18 years old, you should be allowed to vote. It's amazing that we have a system that can automatically register you to for the draft, but not register you to vote. It took nearly a year to get everything to be able to get a new picture ID. And it sucks. It sucks not being able to have a picture ID. Sorry, meant to say I feel like I didn't have I lost my driver's license one time in like October. And so I went like a month without it. And, election day happened to fall into that. This was actually when I voted for Obama the first time. And so I don't know if the election laws in Illinois have changed, but I was able to find my voter registration card, my social security card, and I also had to bring in a utility bill that had my name on it. So I brought in those 3 things. The reason you needed a utility bill with your name on it was to show that you actually lived in that house. Oh, so he said, yeah, Suzu says, sorry, meant to say I felt like it would be higher than 1 million, but that's not an exact way to tell. I agree that it would probably be higher than 1 million, but I'm using my most conservative estimate. So I am deliberately understating my point so that I can't be accused of embellishing it. I think especially if you were to rush this, there are probably at least as many people who could eventually get a birth certificate, but just wouldn't have time to complete the process of whatever they're supposed to do. Making the voting process more complex introduces more chances to cheat. This is another thing that's interesting. I went through, like the database. Is it the Federalist? I always forget if it's. I get Heritage Foundation and Federalist mixed up because they seem to see sense they overlap a lot. But whichever one it is, they have a big database of all the cases of voter fraud they could find, and they have it's actually a really, you should go check it out if you haven't. Just type database of voter fraud and you'll find it on a search engine. But you go through and it's cool. They have like this is it's all categorized and everything, and they have like little summaries, and they even have links to news articles about it, about what happened. A lot of them it's like people trying to rig student count or like city council elections or stuff, and that's like somebody just jammed a bunch of like people literally stuffing ballot boxes with ballots they filled out for themselves. Like some of it is that. But the non-citizens voting, you go through and you look at those, most of the cases of non-citizens voting, they actually used forged documents to register to vote. So what's interesting is it wouldn't even prevent that kind, like non-citizens from voting. So I think that's interesting. It's like the whole thing is ostensibly to stop non-citizens from voting. Very few non-citizens vote, and the very few non-citizens who have voted would have been prevented from voting. And so it's like, we talk about gun laws and stuff, and people are like, oh, they're going to find a way to get a gun anyway. Well, if you make it like you need a birth certificate, you don't think that they're going to find a way to forge a birth certificate or forge a passport? It's not like you can't get forged passports. It's dumb. If you have been voting in elections and you are a citizen with an established record of voting, as a U.S. citizen, my driver's license should be enough. If you're already registered, for most people, it's not going to change it. Like, you're not going to have to go and re-register. But there are some really serious problems that come up. If you read, like I read the SAVE Act. I don't think a lot of people have actually read the SAVE Act to see what's actually in it. They're reading AI summaries of it. But the SAVE Act, one of the things that really jumped out to me is that it requires you to register to vote by mail in person. Like, you don't have to vote in person, but you have to register in person to vote by mail, right? So if you have Sergeant Theophilus living in Texas, and Sergeant Theophilus is from Ohio, and Ohio allows military personnel to vote out of state. Like, there are some states that allow military to vote out of state, some states don't. I'm not sure if Ohio is one or not. I just grabbed that off the top of my head, right? But Theophilus, he's got kids, and he wants his kids to go to Ohio State. The Ohio State. And so he wants to keep his Ohio residency, and he votes in Ohio, right? And he votes by mail in Ohio. Well, according to the SAVE Act, he would have to take leave, go to Ohio, because you can't travel out of state in the military unless you take leave, right? So he has to take leave, and he has to go to Ohio, and he has to register to vote. And if his spouse wants to vote too, she has to go with him, which means they either have to take the kids with them or get a babysitter or whatever. They have to go through all these hurdles to vote rather than to just register by mail. And this is the problem. And it's a very real problem. For a lot of people, they have to vote by mail for a reason. And if you're going to make somebody, like, it's no easier to register in person than it is to vote in person. The same hurdles to voting in person apply to registering in person. So it defeats the purpose of registering to vote by mail at all. It's just dumb. And then, like, what you, if they don't, then what are you going to have, like, half the base take off? What if you're in Italy? Just going to have to, like, cancel the mission for a weekend or for a week so everybody can take leave and go home and vote? This is another thing where it says that, like the procedures to take care of this will be established by the states. But there's not time for the states to establish those procedures. So if you want to have a law, have one well thought out, have one that has these procedures in place or recommendations, or have, like, these conversations, and have time for states to implement these things. Don't rush it. If you want election integrity, have a bill with integrity. There are some states where you can get a driver's license and not be a citizen. Yes. Actually, every state you can get a driver's license without being a citizen. If you have a green card, you can get a driver's license anywhere in the country, but you can't vote. Nobody's like, this is not a confusion that exists. A lot of states will have non-citizen on the driver's license. There is also some states where even if you're an undocumented immigrant, you don't even have to be a legal citizen to get a driver's license. And the reason for that is you're incentivizing people to get a driver's license. It actually makes the roads safer. In Illinois, there was a governor and this is why the other side of why you need to do that. There was a whole with truck drivers, there was a whole scandal where people were taking bribes to get driver's licenses so that these undocumented people could vote and or could drive, not vote. And this truck hit a minivan and killed 7 people. And so then can't remember the name of the governor. It was the one before Blagojevich. And so then they changed the law in Illinois that there was like a sort of a temporary amnesty. Like you could get a driver's license if you were an undocumented migrant, because they wanted to make sure that everybody that's driving could pass a road test. It was a safety issue. And it's like, I'd rather have an undocumented migrant with, that's shown they understand the rules of the road and understand how to drive than one that doesn't. And it's not like not having a driver's license is going to prevent them from driving. There's never been an issue until the president came into office. He thinks everyone cheats because it's exactly what he does. He has certainly made people believe it's an issue. And that I agree it should be a non-issue, but at the same time, there are people that don't believe it's a non-issue. Like there are people that believe that. And I can kind of see the point that they need to have confidence that the election results are real. We need to Trump-proof our elections. And by that, I mean, when Trump says that the election was stolen, even Trump voters say, no, it wasn't, you just lost. Does that make sense? I understand that the dissonance is there, but that doesn't mean we can't address it to, shore up things to be able to show only non-citizens vote, or non-citizens don't vote, and that only citizens vote. What Golf said. Voter ID is a good thing. Actually, voter ID is not a good, like, if we're talking about voter ID, the voter ID, really, they've done studies, like the Congressional Budget Office has done study. Voter ID has almost no impact either way. Like, it's neither good nor bad. It's just a thing. But the SAVE Act is not about a voter ID. Honestly, you know what I think the SAVE Act, the more, like after reading it, um, I think the primary purpose of the SAVE Act is to prevent voter registration drives. The main thing, the biggest impact that it will have is it will kill voter registration drives, because you have to go to vote, you have to go register in person. So I think it prevents voter registration drives. I think it's just to, you know, keep those darn liberals from getting people registered. Yeah. You have to register to vote separately from getting an ID. You can, when you go to get your driver's license, you can also register to vote. But the two things aren't identical. Like, you have to show your birth certificate or whatever. Those are certified ideas, I think, but yeah, this is all a tax. And they know many don't have the means right now, so basically it just disqualifies a whole lot of people who don't get to vote this year. There is that part of it, and it is a kind of poll tax, and there are real constitutional issues here, right? Like, poll taxes are unconstitutional, or voting laws which disproportionately affect people of color or women, because there's like specific amendments. Like people say there's no constitutional right to vote. Technically, black people and women have a constitutional right to vote. Property owners have a right to vote. But if you're like me, if you don't own property and you're a white man, you don't necessarily have a right to vote. It's interesting, right? That there's no constitutional amendment that guarantees white men the right to vote. And the Constitution itself doesn't say white men have a right to vote. It says that if you're a landowner, blah, blah, blah. Andrew Jackson changed that. Won't go into all the whole thing. But at least women and people of color, they have a constitutional right to vote. For them, it is a matter of the Constitution, right? So if you have something that disproportionately affects them, then it is an unconstitutional law. There's some evidence that it would disproportionately affect people of color. And with the whole birth certificate matching your marriage, married name has to be the same as the name on your birth certificate type thing, that definitely disproportionately affects women. So there are real concerns in that regard on the constitutionality of the SAVE Act. How many Mexicans have the same name as somebody who is registered to vote? Do you know the what is the relevance of that question? The SAVE Act is actually a culture war. That's what, and I agree. I'm just saying, if you really want, like, I am not talking about the SAVE Act so much. I am talking about, like, I'm saying my problems with the SAVE Act. But if at the heart of it, if you wanted to tell the people that are concerned about election integrity, that's why I'm referring to election integrity. If election integrity is an issue, then you have to consider everybody's view of what that means, right? Like, for some people, integrity means keeping non-citizens from voting, which realistically you don't have to worry about, right? But you have to let them feel assured that non-citizens aren't voting. For other people, election integrity means you're not keeping actual citizens from voting, right? So if the bill covers both of those things, right? Like if it covered the things that are in the John Lewis Act, but also had increased security to make sure non-citizens aren't voting, I wonder if that election would that get more people on board with it or less? What do you think? Like, and you know, with time, like I'm definitely opposed to any legislation changing voting laws before November, because there's just no time to implement it. But let's say the next election, the 2026 election, and you've got 2 years to implement it. Wouldn't it be better if we had something that, you know, it doesn't have to be what's in the Save Act, but it showed it assured only citizens are voting, but it also didn't. It allowed the means to make sure that every citizen who wants to vote can. You know, wouldn't that be a law we could all get behind? Like, that's what I mean when I say the destination. That's my destination. If we get in the car and want to go somewhere together, let's agree on where we're going. Certified IDs. All right, those are the ones that have, you can't get those unless you're a citizen. No people will steal whatever if they can get away with it. It's America. And don't know what that means. Democrats promised free stuff to people that live outside the country to influence future elections. Okay, so why not? I mean, like, that's not really what anything at all of what we're talking about, but it's an example of what we're not, what I'm trying to avoid. Okay, this is my point. This is why we can't have real conversations, Golf Man. Where I'm trying to talk about how can we actually have a productive conversation about election integrity, right? So, instead of finger pointing and throwing insults and name calling and just slandering the other side, why can't you just, like, what does this made up stuff have to do with anything? If non-citizens can't vote, what does that matter? Shouldn't you want a law that precludes non-citizens from voting? And how does assuring every citizen can vote mean that non-citizens can vote? Like, why can't we have a bill that achieves both goals? Douche magoo. If we need a referee to keep people from cheating during the football game, what makes you think people won't cheat during elections? Because if you cheat during a football game, you don't get 5 years in prison for it. And the referees aren't there to keep people from cheating in football games. They're just there to call the rules. If somebody is offsides, they didn't cheat. They just jumped off early. If you're not sending people to prison for 5 years for an offsides penalty, you get 5 yards, not 5 years. I have yet to meet illegal voters. I did the statistical study on this. This is kind of funny. The odds of standing behind a non-citizen that's voting, you know, like you're in line, you're ready to vote. The odds of standing behind a non-citizen that's voting, and this assumes every single non-citizen votes in person, right? Your odds of your standing behind a non-citizen voting in line are less than that of getting struck by lightning. And the odds of you standing behind a non-citizen that's voting are less than that of being eaten by a shark. And the odds of you standing in line behind a non-citizen voting are roughly equal to that of being struck by lightning while being eaten by a shark. Like, that's how rare it is. It's almost non-existent. Big Mama, and I don't even know if anybody's ever actually been struck by lightning while being eaten by a shark, but if that happened, they had a very bad day. Big Mama lets everybody use her address. She could vote for everybody with mail-in ballots. And I love the way that you, like, Big Mama. What race is Big Mama, Golf Man? I voted for Trump and not happy. Too much rulemaking and no prosperity. All this time to what is so how is what I'm talking about different than democracy? I am saying we should only have we should only have citizens vote and every citizen should be able to vote. What is not democratic about that view? Why can't you have that discussion? I know, Oscar, what happened to Republicans being about smaller government. All right, Golf Man. Whenever you want to participate in the discussion, we'll get back to you reading your comments. Why do my personal freedoms keep being taken away? That's right. And some of the stuff in the Save Act has absolutely nothing to do with voting at all. Like being trans. Why do we need anti-trans stuff in there? Date of birth was incorrect with IRS records, even though my paper birth certificate was correct. Trump is a pedophile. I'm trying to refrain from talking about Trump today. You talking about people without birth certificate reminds me of a story. Back in the 90s, one of my uncles married a woman in Thailand. She was literally born in the jungle and had no documentation at all. My grandmother ended up making one in her computer in order to help get a passport to come visit the US and meet all of the family. That sounds like a country music song. I was born in a jungle. Needed help from my uncle. I don't know. I guess it was the aunt, not the uncle. Polling places in rural towns are not safe. They should be real. I don't know what that means. Classic example of the whole records thing. There was in 1973, there was a major fire in St. Louis, Missouri. That fire wiped out thousands of military service records, an issue that lingers today. Another thing that wiped out a lot of birth certificates is Hurricane Katrina. These aren't hypothetical. They're real. Like, people really just do not have the original birth certificate available to them. Voting should only happen in places with a population higher than 100,000. I disagree. So people that don't have cars will have to walk to the city. Or they'll have to get a ride or an Uber or whatever. I wonder what people are supposed to do. I think you're talking about the people having to register in person. And even if if you're registered to vote, you don't have to go and re-register. But if you're registered to vote, you have to go to register in person to vote by mail, even if you're already registered. Like, you can't be registered and just ask for a vote by mail ballot. You have to go in person to request a vote by mail ballot be sent to you. The voting machines cannot be tampered with. There's like people have hacked voting machines, like the actual voting machines, the software in the voting machines. But those voting machines are air gapped. There's no access to them. So you'd have to go into a precinct with all the people there, and you'd have to unplug your laptop, and you have to jack into the voting machine, and then you'd only be able to hack the voting machine, right? Like, it's not the central database or whatever that counts all the ballots. And you still have the paper ballots. So even if something were, because at least most places, you have like the printouts that you have, like they have the digitized voting records, and then they have the paper ballots, and then if there's a recount, they recount the paper ballots. So you don't want people in Alaska to vote. 100,000 population, there's almost no place there. Exactly. Yeah, I think there are some things you just maybe not worth taking seriously. Uh, See, this is a cultural war, not about saving America. If you're a married woman and choose to change your name, it's even more challenging. Well, I mean, it's challenging, but it's not like I think the left has kind of made more of that than it is. Because what the law says is that the states have to determine what the how to reconcile that, right? And I think most states are just going to say, bring in your birth certificate and your marriage certificate, and that's all you have to do. But that's that hurdle that I'm saying, right? Women have to jump that hurdle, men don't. And so now you have an uneven application of a law. It impacts women differently than men, which is a constant, it's a violation of the 14th and what is it, 17th Amendment that gives women the right to vote. I forget which one. I have ID PTSD. I slap my wallet pocket every 10 minutes or so just so I never have to go through the nightmare of getting my new ID like that again. I can imagine. I hope you made sure that the whole thing was corrected. Let's Mode, that's a huge part of what makes it take longer to get ID. I had to wait on other documents to be able to get a marriage certificate that showed the name change so that, yeah. And that's why I say we need ample time to implement this, right? Um, sorry, just saw this thing on the TV. Trump's trying to put his name back on the Kennedy Center. They still have the thing up there. I don't think he ever really took it down. But the birth certificate and the marriage certificate, like they'll just say you can just bring them both in, but there's still time, and then there's still the women have to go down there and do it. They have to wait at DMV all day. DMV is gonna all like be overswamped. That also means that people that are there for other reasons are gonna have their services hindered because now all of a sudden the personnel is occupied taking care of everybody that needs to re-register. It's just for no reason at all. There's no reason that if you're registered to vote, you can't just go online and update your name. I don't understand the purpose of people like Tolkas M5U coming into a channel stating the same thing 5 different ways, and 2 of which gets stricken by YouTube. He gets a little pushback and goes, did he leave? Too bad. So sad. I don't understand. And like, I'm a Christian, but the people that come in here and like, Jesus is Lord, is like, take it to a Christian channel. Like, do you go on maybe they do go onto the Christian channels and yell about Trump. Didn't even state why he thinks so. They're just they're looking for a response. Most of them aren't even in this country. I don't mind one bit of some time from joining this, for that matter. Hey, we've had people from other countries contribute like really valuable stuff to the conversation, like Harry. Harry. I wonder if Harry left. Harry's one of my favorite. I go to other YouTube live channels occasionally. I notice it's always the same thing. Stupid Democrats, etc., always instead of insults instead of anything of merit. I thought it was so funny the way they were like on the July 4th thing. They're like, oh, he's such a uniter, and why won't the liberals unite behind him? And it's like the guy you wonder why we don't want to get behind the guy that spent the last month debating whether or not Democrat should be spelled with a B. That's the uniter we're supposed to all get behind. Yeah, thank you for doing that, Brett. I don't think I tell you enough how much I appreciate you and Libby and Harry, or Kitty and Harry, taking care of that for me, because I would go insane. Uh, but when I come here and respond to yell in the comments of the host, all you have is that's not the subject. But Joel, if you're not talking about the topic, then you're not talking about the topic. I'm just saying stay on topic. Can you talk about what we're talking about? You always want to change. Like, we're not talking about Barack Obama and the tennis court. Like that. What does that have to do with anything? We're talking about, what is election integrity? And to me, if every American feels like the election is fair, that's election integrity. You can't just take half of the concerns of half the country. Either if that concern is making sure non-immigrants or non-citizens aren't voting, yeah, we need to respect that concern. But if there are another half of the country that is concerned that citizens aren't being able to vote, then you need to respect that. How do we respect everybody's concerns and find a resolution that answers everybody's concern? Why can't we even have that kind of conversation? Immigration is another thing. Like, immigration is a complicated subject. And we never talk about immigration. We just talk about open borders, which is like a nonsensical statement. We can't talk about asylum laws and what asylum is without people yelling about open borders. And asylum and immigration are two entirely different subjects that get conflated together by our inability to have discussions about actual things that matter. We'd rather debate and argue and yell sophistry than to actually have a well thought out discussion about how we can reform our immigration laws to actually make America a better place, to where, like with immigration laws, we have legitimate concerns on the one hand where undocumented immigrants lower the wage floor for certain fields, right, of American citizens that work hard. And they're trying to get ahead. They're trying their hardest to just make a living. And they feel like if they say that, immigrants are stealing their jobs, they just get yelled at and called a racist. Like, I agree, their concern needs to be addressed. We need to make sure that undocumented immigrants aren't lowering the wage floor for them. On the other hand, there are business owners that are struggling to make ends meet themselves. I'm not talking about the big corporate farmers, the small farmers, the small time construction workers, the people that employ like 5 or 6 people. Not the ones that get the big contracts, the ones that get the home remodeling contracts, right? And they're only making $50,000-$60,000 a year. And if you make them hire immigrant, and they don't have American citizens that fill the jobs, and if you make it so that they only get non-citizens through legal means, they have to spend $50,000 or $60,000 to do that. And that means that they are not able to make money at all. And so then they go out of business. That actually hurts the economy. There's study after study, and I'm not talking about like some kind of Democratic think tank. I'm talking about places like Wharton that do studies that show undocumented immigrants actually add billions of dollars to the economy, to the GDP. Just mass deportations hurt the economy. How do you reconcile? Like, we need to reform our immigration laws so that bottom rung workers can still come over here legally and get jobs without hurting Americans that also work in those jobs. Like, we need to have real, honest conversations about immigration instead of just yelling open borders and races. Like, we need to have real conversations instead of stupid arguments. I had a typo and accidentally hit send, and then I kind of gave up. What's a dyslexic vampire's favorite drink? Typo. All right. Get it? Typo. Like typo blood. Okay. I was trying to say that mods work hard to keep the chat from getting totally derailed when trolls come in sometimes. They do. They're awesome. I don't know. I took a quick look at your live stream history going back quite a ways. I don't see what wasn't responded to. Maybe ask the question again. I tried. I tried to. There was. I think Joel and Revival were having this kind of discussion between the two of them that I jumped over. But I've responded to a lot of what Joel said. Joel is still hung up on Kelly saying something about Fox. I don't even know what I said. I don't know what he's saying I said about Fox News. But anyway, it was an aside, if anything. I thought he meant in the past. You missed the point too. All right, we can run it back. Comment says, point host states point is wrong because Fox News. I didn't say anything was wrong because of Fox News. Okay. I don't have any idea what you're referring to. Honestly, I'm not. Can you refresh my memory? What I said was wrong. I don't generally say the point is wrong because of Fox News. I think there was something about somebody said something was wrong because of CNN. Because CNN said something, and I might have said that's like saying something is wrong because Fox said it. The source doesn't matter. What matters is whether or not the thing is true. So, Fox isn't news. But Fox isn't even entertainment for most people. Doesn't mean anything. All right. This is one of those things that where now they're arguing about what was argued about what I said without any clarity on what I said. So I don't even know. It's just come back to earth, Joel. I don't know. Maybe there's some way to run it back. I'm sure. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. All right. I don't have any idea with what you're talking about. I really genuinely have no idea what you're talking about. Like if so you say I know like I'm just if you can refresh my memory in the comment instead of like using words like that and that's a lie. Like I don't know what you're referring to. Like just tell me specifically what point you're addressing in the comments so that I know what you're talking about. Non-citizens cannot vote. It's fear-mongering over something that doesn't happen. I agree. Non-citizens don't vote. I agree. I went through all that. I went through the numbers and everything. Maybe it's because you're coming off kind of sinning with the LOLs and the ha ha ha. Okay. I agree there are multiple layers, and I feel more strongly that it's primarily to disqualify people from registering voting. When I look at the SAVE Act, and I actually read through the SAVE Act, it seems like the main thing it will actually do is kill voter registration drives. It will just end up in fewer people voting, fewer citizens voting. There are going to be people that that won't vote because they just can't. They want to, but they can't because there's no birth certificate. There are people who want to vote but can't because they just don't have time to get their birth certificate. There are people that will, like would have voted but they just don't want to go to DMV. Going to DMV, especially like if you live in a city, going to DMV sucks. It's like you have to spend a day in hell to go to DMV. There's a sitcom about DMV and how hell it is to go there. Kind of condescending. So LOLs and ha 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 can't be used. Okay, LOLs and ha 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 can be used here. That's not his point. His point is how you use them, right? Like, if I say, yeah, your mama, LOL, ha ha ha, that means one thing. If I say, that was a funny joke, LOL, ha ha ha, that means another thing. If you're trying to dismiss what somebody said with an LOL, ha ha ha, then yeah, that's condescending. Fox talking point when Fox News. I have no idea. Like, what did I say that about? Like, you're using this to derail the conversation. You're using an aside. What are you talking about, Joe? What is the core issue here? That I don't watch Fox News? I wasn't saying Fox. I didn't mention Fox News. I have no idea what you're talking about with Fox News. Yes, for just whatever the root, like, we're trying to talk about voter integrity here. Bring it back. Let go of the whole Fox News thing. You're fixated on that. Let it go. Nobody cares about Fox News. Yeah, this is like he did a whole thing on that before where Revival was trying to work with him on it, and it's just like he did this before with the whole Obama thing with the and he ended up anyway. It's like, this is what I mean when I say don't derail the conversation. Like, just feel free to participate. Just don't try and derail the conversation. Don't try to become the center of the conversation. Participate. Don't hijack. Pennsylvania, registered voters who request a mail-in ballot have to ask for it every year. They verify your address and driver's license. And now you have to go in person to do that. You can't do that by mail. You can't do that online. Like in Texas right now, if you move, you can update your address online. But now you have to go to DMV. You have to drive to DMV, and you have to do that in person. And for some people, that's inconvenient. So, like, if you live in the city, that means you have to go spend a day burning in hell. If you live in the rural community like I do, I have to drive 25 miles to get to DMV. I have to spend a couple of hours there, and then I have to drive 25 miles back. That's a 50-mile drive. Why can't I update my, if I were to, move? I haven't moved in, 15 years. I don't anticipate moving. But do you see my point? Like, why do we have to jump through hurdles to do stuff that can be done online? Does updating your address online prevent non-citizens from voting? Like, why? What does that have to do with non-citizens voting? Why can't I update my address online? He's only 300-second timeout. He is not exactly belligerent, but it's annoying. Yes, he wants to become the center of attention. I'm pretty sure he will get back from his timeout and do the exact same thing again. If he will, then I'll just lengthen it to 24 hours. Brett's going to learn in one way or another. Voting machines are not internet equipped. Yes. That's what it means. They're air gap. There's no access to, there's no way that they can be accessed via the internet. They can only be accessed hardwire, which is why a lot of the Elon stuff is bogus. Like, Elon could not have stolen the election. It's hopefully if he decides to come back after calming down, he can just ask his question. I low-key have a crush. Harry is awesome. I low-key have, I want to read his comments in a British accent, but I'm afraid it would be a very good one. Okay. Why couldn't they get behind Obama? Trump is trash. Obama was brilliant. Okay. Immigration is supposed to be for the benefit of the citizens of the United States, not the other way around. Asylum is a whole different thing and horribly abused. Okay, so how is it abused? And how do you resolve it? And, like when you say it's abused, what makes it abused? Like, actually have a conversation about asylum. Don't attack the system. Because too often people don't even know what it is. Like you say it's abused. Do you actually know what the process is to request asylum? Have you sat down and talked to an asylum officer like I have? Have you sat down and had a conversation with an asylum attorney the way I have? Have you talked to asylees the way I have? Or have you just watched somebody on Fox News or whatever? Actually, I see it even on MSL. Like, they're coming over here for a better way of life. No, a lot of them are coming over here to not be murdered. And there's a whole system in place to, prevent them from just running an end run around immigration laws. And people don't know what the laws are or what the process is. They just say lazy things without learning. Learn what is your issue with the process that you think that people are abusing it? And how is immigration, when you say immigration is supposed to be for the benefit of the citizens of the United States, not the other way around, what does that even mean? Why is it, like, to you, why is it a dichotomy? Why can't immigration be a benefit to both the immigrants and the United States? And what makes you think it's not? If you run a farm, if you have a strawberry farm, and those people work for you, and they keep your strawberry farm afloat, is that a benefit to the farmer? Is that a benefit to the immigrants? Immigration does not benefit the United States. It does benefit the United States. Thank you. American population is aging. You're no longer able to reproduce new workers. Who do you think is paying into the Social Security system? Yeah, I think there's like billions of dollars that undocumented migrants pay into Social Security every year. If you get rid of all of those, you're getting rid of all the money that they're paying in, and they're never going to collect on it. Okay, if you're not upset, you're like, we can prove that you won't let it go. You're like a dog with a bone. Let it go, Joel. Nobody even knows what you're complaining about. I don't even know if you know what you're complaining about anymore. You don't have any context to it. I said the words something about Fox News. That's all I can gather. Like, move on. Let it go. Just put the bone down, Joel. All right. And everybody else is running from it. And Joel can't even determine what he's complaining about. Tell him exactly what you want to stop crying about and getting ignored, and get to the point. He's done this before. Like, it just some random word that he like fixates on, and it's like, just let it go, or either let it go or at least let us know what you're talking about. Like, you're just keep yelling the words Fox News as though somehow that's like gonna clarify anything. You're not crying, dude. Let it go. And I'm making claims that I can't prove. What claim did I make that I can't prove? Like, what claim? Please be specific. Tell me the claim I can't prove. Tell me what it is. Stop saying I can't prove the claim that I can't prove the claim because you can't let me know what the claim is. Ah. Rid Communist Party. I don't know. I don't think there. What Communist Party are you talking about? There is no Communist Party. I still have no clue what you're talking about. Never have the entire time that you've been ranting about this. I have no idea whatsoever what you are referring to. So I'm not even the one that said Fox News. Revival said Fox News talking point. I have no idea what you're talking about, Joel. Joel won't say exactly what the subject is. I've searched this chat history. This is my frustration. Like I've read like 100 of his comments, and none of them are actually saying what he's complaining about, other than he'll be like, streamer commenter said Fox News about talking point. Streamer said, and streamer won't defend his talking point. What am I supposed to do with that? There's nothing in there of any substance to address. Anyway, we're just going to skip over Joel's comments. Don't respond to him unless he actually says something relevant so we can move on. Like, so immigration is another one of those issues. Asylum is another one of those issues. We need to learn to talk about what the issues are and, figure out what our destination is so that we can actually discuss how to get to that destination. All right. So I guess, thank you, Brett. Joel's on a timeout. Elon Musk is a technological wizard, a true Renaissance man. Is he? Ask any coder, and then they'll have a serious. They won't. What he is he is a person who buys other people's ideas and then makes lots and lots of money off of them. I don't know if that makes him a technological genius. I have no idea how much he knows about coding or whatever. I do know there's the guy. One of my favorite posts is this guy that said Elon Musk would talk about cars. And I don't know anything about cars, but he's made all this money off of cars, so I assumed he knows what he was talking about. And then he was talking about rockets, and I don't know anything about rocket science. And he owns this rocket company, so I assumed he knew what he was talking about. Now he's talking about coding, and I know about coding, and I know he doesn't know what he's talking about. So Elon Musk, I think he's a smart person. I don't think he's a genius. I always say this is the difference between a smart person and a genius is a smart person can take something simple and make it complicated. A genius can take a complicated thing and make it sound simple. Okay? You look at somebody like Bill Clinton that can take incredibly complex political ideas and reduce them down to, something that's so seems like common sense. That takes genius. Obama, he could also do that. Donald Trump can take nonsense and make it sound like nonsense. Elon Musk can take something relatively simple and, like act like it's really a complicated thing and make you think it's complicated. So that Brett, that is a brilliant response. Yes, that is exactly the demonstration of when the LOL and ha 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 is condescending, and it's deliberately condescending, and it's beautifully condescending. Elon Musk rescued the astronauts no, Elon Musk did not. Elon Musk company did. All right, SpaceX did. And it's not like without SpaceX, there was no way. It's not like somebody went and figured out, like Elon Musk didn't sit there on his computer and do calculations and figure out how to rescue them. Elon Musk had a company that had spaceships that was funded for, was all bought by taxpayers. It's not like he invented NASA. It's not like there was no way that they were going to get rescued if it weren't for SpaceX. It's just his spaceships were the ones that, bought out NASA, and that's why they went. Come on, don't be silly. The only thing that Elon Musk has invented is ways to make lots and lots of money off the US taxpayer. Did you know that Elon Musk has gotten more money from US tax dollars than anybody else in American history? And that he's only paid he's only paid half as much in taxes as he has gotten in tax dollars? He's gotten 36 billion dollars in taxes, and over his entire life, in spite of the fact that he's worth over $1 trillion, he's only paid $16 billion in taxes, which is a lot of taxes for like me, right? But not compared to over $1 trillion. He pays less of a percent of his money in taxes than I do, and I don't have that much money. He invented nothing. He paid other people to do things. Anyway, I don't know why we're talking about Elon Musk all of a sudden. He didn't create the greatest electric car that ever exists. First of all, Tesla's not the greatest tech. There's other cars that are better than Tesla's. And number two, he bought Tesla. He did not invent it. Do you actually ever read? That's not even a confusion most muskrats have. I kind of want to buy you a drink. Brett is awesome. There's days where Brett isn't able to make it, and the show is just it's less good without Brett. That's why I figured you could use a drink. This is why I say the mods work is hard. Agreed. Need to come up with a destination to all work toward to discuss the issues standing in the way of that and come up with practical solutions to those problems. And it's so hard. It's so hard, Revival, to even get people on the discussion of this needs to be the discussion. That's the whole show today. This is my struggle. Like, just to get somebody else say, you know what? That sounds like a good destination where only American citizens vote, but every American citizen can vote. Like, that should be an easy thing to get agreement on, but we can't get agreement on that because we got to get people saying, but the other side is bad. And it's like, if we can say every citizen can vote, but only citizens vote, we don't have to worry about it. We've got everybody taken care of and everybody agrees with both sides of it. I'm tired of our government just being a bunch of talking points, looking like 3 raccoons in a trench coat. I love that line. RFK would cut off the joint of one and try to smoke it. I was picturing, like, it took me a minute to realize you meant smoke, like on a smoker. I was imagining him rolling a raccoon in wrapping paper. But I could actually see him doing either one. I still can't get past the fact that he stopped and cut one off and then slept with it that night in his room. I hadn't heard about that one. He cut off the limb of a raccoon and slept with it? With the limb or the raccoon or the joint? He cut the whale off a head, strapped it to the car, and then drove it home with his kids in the car wearing bags over their heads so whale guts wouldn't get in their face. I'm considering a Toyota Crown. China has better electric cars than Teslas. YouTube flagging the weirdest comments. I don't see the harm in that one. Which one, though? I don't know. Maybe the USA should conquer the world and just let everyone vote. If Donald Trump had his way, then he'd do the first part. He's talking about conquering Denmark or Greenland again. He wants to conquer Cuba. We haven't even talked about how it seems like the war is back on with Iran. Right now, there is so much division, which I feel is intentional, and that things keep turning into us versus them and ignore actual problems. And that is what I mean by solution oriented politics. If we can just agree, this is the problem, this is the conversation, then we can start working towards a solution that everybody agrees on. Like if we can all say, I agree that every American citizen should be able to vote, but only American citizens vote. That addresses everybody's concerns. And it wouldn't matter that non citizens aren't voting because we're agreeing that non citizens shouldn't vote. So then you don't have to fight for that. Like it doesn't have to be one or the other. When I say, like, get what's in the John Lewis Voting Rights Act and still add to that some kind of security measures to make sure non-citizens aren't voting, everybody's happy. But we don't want everybody to be happy. It's like almost like in America now, we're more worried about making the other side angry than our side happy. Okay, after this show, I'm gonna Google this. What RFK Jr. did with a raccoon. It is so sad that man is in charge of our health. Should I actually do that? It's like never Google. If somebody says don't Google this, then everybody's going to Google it, and then their next reaction is, why did I Google that? Because usually it's going to end up some kind of really disgusting images. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. once pulled his car over on a highway and used a pocket knife to cut the genitals off a road-killed raccoon. Oh, it auto-corrected the joints. Then he studied it in his room all night and went to bed with it. This man is in charge of our health. This is the man who is deciding what our vaccine policies are. The man who studies sawed-off roadkill raccoon penises. I fear Trump is setting us up in Iran the same way Reagan did in Afghanistan. Trump doesn't really set things up or anything. Trump just does whatever impulse hits Trump that day. We need to stop analyzing Trump as though he's a person with the next move in mind. Donald Trump does not have strategies. Donald Trump has impulses. That's why he will say 5 different things in the same day, because he will have multiple impulses in the same day. The last thought that went through Donald Trump's head is the only thought in his head at that moment. And the next thought that goes through Donald Trump's head will replace every other thought that preceded it. RFK, I voted for that guy. Oh, Walter, at least you're embarrassed about it. I'm thinking he was going to try and keep it up and put it in a necklace. We don't know that he didn't. I gotta remember I'm a monetized channel right now. I have jokes. That will get me suspended. He probably threw it some ramen and ate it. Threw it in some ramen and ate it. Maybe put it on a hot dog bun. There, Walter. Oh, have you ever noticed that Trump used the invisible accordion hands whenever he's lying? Okay, first of all, he was saying something yesterday. He was talking about something. And he was sawing hard on that air accordion. And I didn't even need to have the it was muted, and he was just sitting there doing his, air accordion. And I mean, like he was hitting that air accordion so hard that I was like, I don't even need to know what he's saying to know he's lying. When he's got the air accordion going like that, he's lying. And then I was thinking that, and then Lawrence O'Donnell was on his show. I had that on, and he he actually picked up on that, and he was like talking about Lawrence O'Donnell is actually low key hilarious. He's got a really dry sense of humor, and he was talking about how Donald Trump's hands are disconnected from his brain, and they have nothing to do with the other. It was pretty funny. Anyway, wish I had a clip of that. It would have been worth sharing. I googled it. Historically, the unique curved bone has been used as a talisman to bring good luck in gambling, enhance sexual potency, attract love, and even as a practical tool hoodoo and Appalachian folk magic thing. So can you imagine what's her name? The from the Larry David show, the wife, the actress from the Larry David show, his wife. Can't think of her name. But can you imagine, like, your husband comes and, he's like, you ready for a good time? I got something special. And he pulls out a roadkill raccoon penis. It's like, things are about to get friendly. Like, that, I can just totally see him doing that, except he would be doing it in a screech voice. The necklace thing is something they do. I don't think he's being strategic, but may have the same result. A 20-year, yeah. I think that there are a lot of things. The ramifications of Trump will live long past Trump. His legacy is there, but it's not going to be good. He's fornicating up this country so badly that it's like one term of a Democrat isn't going to fix it this time. Oh yeah, Michael Cohen, Trump's former personal attorney and longtime fixer, famously made this claim about his accordion hands and lying it's a poker still. And Michael Cohen, by the way, he pretended to be a liberal for a while, and now he's back on the Trump side. I guess he's reconciled with Trump, and now he's like got some kind of talk radio program on like one of Trump's networks. Like, this is another one of those things where Trump allowing conservative to, buy out all the media, and just, this is not something that's going to be fixed in a couple of years. Donald Trump does not work for Spectre. They had real plans. What is Spectre? I don't know. You're talking about something I don't understand. When he banned F-35 missiles from Turkey, and now he's selling secrets to them, and even the F-35. Watch his recent speech with his hands when he was asked why the change. And the F-35. So there were the sanctions on Iran, because Iran was buying their what is it, S-400, I think it's called, their missile defense system from Russia. And the sanctions were on there because the missile defense system they were using was made by Russia, and like, it gets updated and stuff like that. And there's concerns that they could use the F-35 to train the S-400 system how to combat F-35s, and then, like, backdoor that into ways that Russia could find out how to fight our F-35. So it's like an actual national security issue. But he just decided that we're gonna waive the sanctions on Turkey. Well, he sat there and talked about what a great leader Erdogan is. Everything he says is just like, dude, it's embarrassing. You're embarrassing the country again. It's always interesting too when you watch him outside of his little bubble, like when he's got his little protective gaggle of reporters around him, and like his administration, and he can say really stupid things. And then everybody will pretend like it's just like this profound wisdom that, and these are his apostles and this is Jesus Christ ministering from the mountain, you know, instead of just this guy, this is an idiot rambling along, and then these are other idiots nodding their heads like lemmings. And so he does this expecting the same reaction when he leaves his bubble and he's like talking to other people, and other people are sitting there looking at him, not even disrespectfully, but like just with like confused faces, like, what the hell is he talking about? And he's doing stuff like posting these memes of the Italian prime minister that are like AI, you know, fakes of her like looking at him with these adoring eyes. And there's like actual video where it's like obviously not what happened. And he's like sitting there saying he needs to get a restraining order against the prime minister of Italy because she's like, gonna sexually assault him when he's the one that's like the actual person that has sexually assaulted women. It's just all so weird. And you get his sycophants around him, and they sit there and they encourage that. And then, but when he leaves that and he's like around people that are really in the media, that he can't threaten their parent organizations with lawsuits. And then, and and they look all confused. And then he doesn't know what to do, so he just goes even harder, thinking that he needs, like, anyway. His brain is jello. Apparently, Netanyahu canceled a meeting with Hexas over F-35 deal. Oh my goodness, Netanyahu's been out there doing some. Like Netanyahu's trying to inject himself in the American political system now too, sitting there campaigning for the Republicans. So I don't know what that's about. Like if he's even pissed off at Hexas, like not like I don't know what that's like, how do you decide between Stalin and Hitler? Stalin and Hitler fought at one point, right? I've said it before and I'll say it again. I wish I had a humiliation king, because so much of this crap is so embarrassing. I hear you. Bibi needs to be tried for crimes against humanity. Well, he's been indicted for them. I was really reluctant to call what Israel is doing genocide at first. But it's at a certain point, October 7th happened, but so did everything before October 7th and everything after October 7th. October 7th doesn't justify murdering tens of thousands of children or displacing nearly 3 million Palestinians. Oh, Spectre is a James Bond thing. We probably need some new anti-monopoly legislation. There's this picture, I don't know who it was, but there's this picture of Donald Trump with this guy that literally looks like the Monopoly guy. It's like if the Monopoly guy actually stepped off the box and was a real person, it would look like this guy. He looks like a cartoon, a real life cartoon. All of the news stations having the same owner isn't good. Yeah, Sinclair Broadcasting, I think now it owns like 40% of the broadcast networks, like the local stations. John Oliver did a thing on that a few years ago, and it's gotten worse since. The German interpreter is not able to make him sound as idiotic and rambling as he sounds in the original. That's the other thing. Like if you ever, I've thought of an idea of like, I want to sell Trump shirts, and Trump shirts would just be like taking actual transcriptions of things he's actually said and just like printing it off on a t-shirt, and just some of the incoherent psychobabble. If I sold those on the channel, would you buy them? At least now it is point counterpoint for somebody watching multiple networks. At least other countries, when he finally goes out of his way, look at him the way most people should. Confused and insulted. Yeah. And like today, I turned on, I got up, got my coffee, sat down, was what, turned on the TV, getting just, I always like to watch Stephanie Rule in the morning now. Stephanie Rule rules. I love Stephanie Rule. She's awesome. I'm glad she's on daytime. Anyway, I was going to sit there and watch Stephanie Rule. I turn on the TV, and he's sitting there next to Zelensky. And he's sitting there, and he's just doing this derogatory treatment of Zelensky. And he's like waving his hand at him. He's talking about, like Donald Trump, or how Putin, they were asking him about, whether or not there was going to be peace. And he's like talking about how difficult it is to deal with Putin. And he's like, and this one isn't any better. And he kind of he gestures over at Zelensky, with Zelensky sitting right there. And he's like just denigrating him in front of the press. And I'm watching that, and I'm like thinking, Zelensky deserves the Nobel Peace Prize for not just standing up and bitch slapping Trump all the way back into oblivion for that. Like, what an asshole move. How can we free Palestine while Hamas still controls the area? They are the truly okay. How about you ask that question? How about you answer that question? But ask it, is it necessary? Like, do you think that what we're doing right now, or what Israel is doing, is freeing Palestine? Is your concern Hamas? Is your concern the freedom of Palestine? When you're bombing them into, like the Stone Age? 3 million of them, children. Most of Palestine has nothing to do with Hamas. Most Palestinians are not Hamas. That's like such a disgusting answer. Sorry, Foggy. But there are real people that are dying. There are real children that are starving to death. And it's not like October 7th was the beginning of things. Did you know that the year prior to October 7th was the most violent by Israel against Hamas and Palestine, or in Gaza? It's not like Hamas started it on October 7th. They continued it on October 7th. And that's not defending what Hamas did. But I'm not going to use what Hamas did to rationalize what Israel is doing. Both sides have been wronged, and both sides have done wrong. And until we can appreciate both sides have had issues, and the people that have suffered the most aren't on either side. The vast majority of Gaza is victims. They're victims of Hamas, and they're victims of Israel. They're victims of both. And what is happening right now only empowers Hamas. BB funded. Yeah, there's evidence that she's not being hyperbolic when she said that. Like, there's evidence like of him literally putting money in a trunk of a car and giving it to Hamas. I have to go in 15. I have to get going pretty soon too. Yeah. Rid the world of traitors. Also, daytime TV is garbage. Most is blatantly biased or straight propaganda. I don't think so. I mean, I don't know what you watch, but I mean, Stephanie Roll is pretty much down the middle as far as most of daytime MS now is actually, I think, pretty accurate. And it's left leaning, but I wouldn't say it's biased. I think sometimes people get confused with bias versus leaning. Leaning is like if you learn something and you know something and you actually kind of share your leanings on something, that doesn't make it a bias. Bias is unfair. And so it's like if I say I'm against slavery and then I explain the reasons that I'm against slavery, that doesn't mean I have an anti-slavery bias. Like having an opinion doesn't make you biased. What makes you biased is having an opinion without having facts first, and then forming your opinion based on the facts. Biases usually come from finding facts that fit your opinion and disregarding those that don't. I really believe Hamas will de-radicalize if radicalization was no longer needed. I am inclined to disagree with that. I'm sorry. Hamas has always been, well, I don't know if they always were. Before them, the PLO ran Gaza, and the PLO, I think they actually won the election kind of on a let's scale back thing, but that didn't last long. And the last election was like, I want to say like 2006, something like that. So it's been like 20 years, and most of the population, more than half the population, wasn't even born the last time they had an election. And then this is true. Israel, like, I think it's even like a slogan or something. For everyone they kill, we kill 1,000 or something like that. But even that ratio is they've gone beyond that. And it's not like Palestine went and invaded Israel, right? I think a lot of Americans don't even know what Nakba is. But Palestine, the Palestinians had been living in that land for centuries, and then through going back to the 1850s with the Ottomans trying to sell land, and without going into a lot of history, Jews started moving back there in the 1850s, and it's not faulting the Jews. They just wanted a place where they weren't going to be murdered because the Europeans kept murdering them all the time, and so they just wanted to get the hell out of Dodge, and that's where they went. And so then you just had the Jewish population growing there, and then that pushed the Palestinian population out of the way. And Palestinians were like, they didn't necessarily sell their land. The Ottomans, the Ottoman oligarchs would like basically register land they weren't working with. Farmers were working with it, and then the Ottoman oligarchs would say, "Oh, that's my land," and then they would sell it to Jewish people that were trying to flee Europe because they were tired of getting murdered. So then they would buy this land, and then they would move to this place where they bought this land legally, and then somebody's already living there. And they're like, wait, we own this land. And so I think of it like this. Let's say you're just sitting in your house, and the bank had the deed to your house, and the bank just decided they were going to sell your house to someone else. And you're like 2 payments away from paying it off. And then somebody comes and says, yeah, I bought this house. You need to leave. And you're like, what do you mean? I didn't sell this house. I'm not going anywhere. And that's kind of the situation. That's why we have issues in Palestine. It's Israel. A lot of the Israelites, they bought land legally that was never sold to them legally. Like they did nothing wrong. And then after World War II, this area was carved out for them, not by the Palestinians weren't like, didn't say, yeah, we're going to give up this land. Europeans decided that Israel was going to get this land, not the people in Palestine. And so then they got pushed out after that. And so then they fought back. And then because they fought back, they got pushed out again. And that was Nakba. It's like basically the Palestinian equivalent of the Trail of Tears. Right? And so then they get pushed to the West Bank. And then they get pushed more. And get pushed more. Now they're almost pushed out into the ocean. But October 7th, that's all that matters. You sound like an ignorant person who doesn't understand the concept of a terrorist using people as... No, you sound like an ignorant person who thinks that saying, okay, so like basically what you're saying is if a terrorist holds people hostage, just murder the hostages because it's their fault that they were being used as hostages. My question had nothing to do with what Israel is doing. I think what Israel has done is disgusting. I don't support both baby killing sites. Both Israel and Hamas are falling into Israel. I wouldn't even say Israel and Hamas. I would say Bibi and his little ethnocentric deviants and Hamas. I think the majority of Israel does not want to like murder babies, and I think the majority of Palestinians don't want to murder babies. But the baby murderers on both sides are deciding all the baby murdering that goes on. Hamas stole the food aid to, well, on the one hand, yes, Hamas stole the food aid to starve the people there for propaganda, but Israel also restricted how much food aid was going through for Hamas to steal. Don't just blame everything on Hamas. Israel is not allowing food to come through. And this precedes October 7th. For a long time, they weren't even allowed nutmeg there. Israel has made Hamas and prompted it indirectly as a separate but equal government thing. And then when it became radicalized, they blamed Palestinians for voting for Hamas. And Hamas, like most of them Hamas didn't even win a majority of the vote. They won with a plurality of the vote 20 years ago by people who are mostly dead now. Israel has specifically targeted reporters trying to report on the ongoing situation between Israel and Palestine. Yes, Israel has actually killed reporters. I have seen the double tap videos. They have killed hundreds of reporters. Then I've seen videos of them injuring people. Then when the reporters and medical go in, they tap again. It's like, and that, like, acknowledging Israel does evil things does not mean that you're okay with Hamas doing evil things. In both cases, it's the Palestinians who are mostly the victims of it. It's like a contest to see who can murder the most Palestinians. British were occupying Palestine and then gave it to Israel. Israel in World War I, there's something called I think it was Montgomery, maybe the Hussein-Montgomery agreement, something like that. The British promised the Palestinians that they would have a free state if they helped them defeat the Ottomans in World War I. And so the Palestinians literally bled for their freedom and then were denied it after World War I because the French and the British divvied up the land. And the British, there was also a different agreement where they promised to give the same land to Israel or to the Jews. So they lied to both the Palestinians and the Jews and then kept the land. The truth is that both sides are, like when you say both sides, it's not just two sides. And number two, it's not really an ethnic or a religious multi-generational war. That is inaccurate. The Jews and the Muslims lived together side by side, fine, without any kind of religious. I wouldn't say fine or without any religious, but the Jews lived in the Ottoman Empire with much more freedom than they did in Europe. There wasn't a whole lot of religious conflicts. The Ottomans had a system where they're like, Christians, Muslims, and Jews all worshiped the same God. And so they all were allowed to have their own kind of internal government as long as they were under the Ottoman government. So they were self-governed societies with oversight from the Ottomans, and the Ottomans got their tax dollars. The Jews suffered much more in Europe than they did in the Muslim world. Did you know that up until I think World War II, if I'm pretty sure that this is accurate, but the largest population of Jews was Iran. Like Iran had the largest population of Jews of any country in the world. Israel went and killed half the population. I think it just takes a special kind of evil to lure medical professionals and reporters into a hot zone and then light them up no matter what side. Yeah. Yeah. Like most people don't have any concept that like they don't even know what the like Ottomans. Whoa. Like they don't even know that the Ottomans were like part of World War I or whatever. You're absolutely swallowed propaganda. Look up the facts. Hamas didn't own the land. I've looked up the facts, dude. I told you what the facts are. If you don't think those are the facts, and as I even said, Jews bought the land, but they bought the land from people that didn't own the land, that weren't on the land, that weren't working the land. I explained this, dude. Don't sit there and tell me to look up stuff that I spent 6 months diving into 8 hours a day. You look it up. I've got a whole series of videos on this, and they're on both sides of it. I think the Jews also are unfairly represented in a lot of this. Like they had reason they wanted to get the hell out of Europe and have a land of their own. Look up the history of how the IDF was formed. It is literally several terrorist organizations that joined forces. Okay, thank you. You guys want to say hi? Here's my bear. That's Huggy Bear. He's been sitting in my lap the whole night, the whole show. He wanted to. He decided to wait until the show started to ask for his cuddles today. Modern-day Israel was established in a land known as Palestine, named by Romans who took control in the 2nd century CE. Its inhabitants have been historically Jewish since biblical times. That's not true. I mean, you're saying things that are just objectively wrong. Rome cleared out the whole area of Jews after in 72 AD. Titus, it's called the Dispersia, and chased Jews all over the place. That area was not primarily Jewish that's not true. When in 1850s, the Jewish population of Palestine, the area we now know as Israel, was 3% Jewish. Again, I've done the research. I know what I'm talking about. You don't. Do the research. I'm saying that as someone with Israeli friends, both here and in USA and in Israel. The Balfour Declaration, yes. That's the one that promised the Jews ownership of Israel after World War I. Good evening, Simon. What does Simon say? Simon says your ignorance is... Oh, no, that's... pss, pss. Oh, somebody's saying hello to you. Somebody's saying hello to you. Revival says... Pss, pss, pss. And Malkath says my ignorance is funny. Okay. I don't really feel like I need to justify myself to you. International Federation of Journalists says that at least 2,418 media workers have been killed in Gaza. So the 2418 and media workers have been killed. Was that supposed to be medical and media workers? 241 media workers have been killed in Gaza. Wow. Of course, they're not media workers if they're like Muslim, I think. They're just Hamas pretending to be media or something, probably. I mean, I'm being facetious when I say that. Okay, so we're almost up to... We're over 3 hours now. So I think it's time. Oh, hey, Dusty. Hi there. I wish, yeah. Anyway, sorry, Dusty, you came in at the end. I hear a new guy is running in Maine. Oh, did they replace Planter? I have to, I reverse course on Planter. New information, change the facts for me. I was saying, like, I was willing to give him the benefit on the doubt on the Nazi tattoo because I looked up what it is, and if I didn't, like, if somebody had walked in, before I looked it up and I saw that Nazi tattoo, I would have thought it was like a heavy metal band thing. I didn't know what it was. And I know some people do know what it is, but just because you don't know what it is doesn't mean everybody knows what it is. And I know that it's in Hogan's Heroes, but I don't sit there and pay attention to the memorizing the uniforms in Hogan's Heroes 40 years ago. So anyway, I didn't know what that symbol was. And look. All right, see this? Yeah, that's the tattoo that I got when I got drunk in the military. So when people say they went and got drunk in the military and got a tattoo, I'm willing to believe them. Planter hasn't dropped out yet. They need a choice like Pritzker in Illinois. Everyone deserves someone who actually writes policies. Yeah, I hope I just, there's too much at play. Planter needs to drop out, and then he needs to endorse whoever it is and say, and he needs to issue an apology to the Maine voters. Like, just, he should have never even run in the first place. Like, just, if you hear this, if you've ever sexually assaulted a woman, don't run for anything. Right? Just period. Don't run for anything. It's not that hard. Find something else to do with your life. I don't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican or an independent or a libertarian or DSA or whatever. Just don't run for politics if you're a sex predator. Why is that hard? Find something else to do with your life. You can be reformed. But if you've raped a woman 4 years ago, don't run for office. And you got what's his name? Mitch McConnell sitting there talking about, well, at least Republicans, we abandon our we abandon our candidates. Really? And he's talking about, we distance ourselves from Matt Gaetz. Did you really? You investigated him for 2 years. He actually won an election while he was being investigated. You didn't back away from him as soon as charges came out. Did you go and continue to support Brett Kavanaugh? Did Susan Collins vote to confirm Kavanaugh? Like, you don't get to sit there and talk about how you're against sexual assault because that you're better against, about people who are accused of sexual assault, when the guy that's running against Susan Collins was told to drop out immediately. And meanwhile, the woman that voted for a rapist to be on the Supreme Court was his opponent. She's no better than he is. At least his sexual assault was limited to one woman. Brett Kavanaugh made it so that any woman who was ever impregnated through sexual assault can't do anything about it. They just got to carry their rapist baby if they're living in the wrong state. If someone isn't into Nazi symbolism, etc., they wouldn't necessarily. And I'm a pretty well-read person, I'm not into Nazi symbolism. It's never been a like you'd have to be into Nazi symbolism in order to really know what that is. And like whether you believe him or don't believe him is not really here nor there now. Like he like the part of the reason I was willing to believe what he said about that is even with this controversial Reddit posts, there were things like 20 years ago he said why don't black people tip, which is obviously a problematic post. I'm not defending the post. I'm saying it was 20 years ago and he said he learned something about it, right? But there was nothing like there's not like it's not like there's this long ideological line of posts that are pro-Nazi propaganda or something. Kevin McCarthy. Did I say Michael McCarthy? Kevin McCarthy. He covered it with pagan symbolism too. I wish he just did a wolf. It's too much to excuse between everything. For me, like the one thing stands on its own. Like the other woman that accused him was a speechwriter for Susan Collins. So this, remember they tried to do this to Joe Biden, right? They did this to Al Franken, to where they smear Democrats with the Me Too movement. Get a conservative person to accuse him. And so I was like, I wasn't like, I don't believe her. I'm just like, I'm going to need some more verification than the one person that happens to be a speechwriter for Susan Collins say so that he's a sexual predator. Well, so then when this other one came out, I'm like, okay, you just get out of here. I'm not trying to defend him. I'm just saying that changed everything. This was more than some of the allegations against him before. If Mitch, but Kevin McCarthy to sit there and pretend like the party that ran Roy Moore. I mean, at least Planter wasn't doing it to pedophiles or to girls. At least he wasn't a pedophile assaulter. You got Donald Trump, by the way. You've got like it's like they could have a Jeffrey Epstein reunion in a cabinet meeting. Like half his cabinet seems to have known Jeffrey Epstein. And they're going to sit there and act like, oh, Planter's the, Plantner. Now they're going to get all self-righteous and holy. Did Donald Trump say that he grabbed women by the pussy or not? Donald Trump literally was on tape bragging about how he sexually assaults women. So don't give me this high and mighty stuff. Smear campaign always worked to muddy the waters. And that's the worst part about him, right? Like, because the smear campaigns make it hard to know when the real accusations are there. I like to say believe all women at first, right? Like the one, like I can't remember the name of the woman that tried to smear Joe Biden. And it was funny that what ended up crushing her whole thing was that women wore pantyhose back in the day. I think YouTube flagged my comment about an emoji alienating constituents. I don't know what the purple thing is. I don't speak emoji very fluently. YouTube did I think YouTube has been weird. Yeah, we've gotten some complaints from different people about YouTube, and Brett's not here to approve them. Even when it's real, when there's 100 articles is. I straight up typed out exactly what I meant the time, and there's no mod on to override the YT flags, and Kelly skipped it, so I can only assume YT didn't like me saying that. Yeah, I didn't skip any of your comments. And I'm like, I stream from Restream, not from YouTube, because I also stream to Twitter, my Substack, and Facebook. Although most of the comments come from YouTube. So anyway, I think that's going to be a wrap for today. I need to get something to eat. I hope you guys have a wonderful evening. And it's good to see you again, Dusty. I was going to go about 15 minutes ago, but you popped on and I wanted to say hi. So hello. All right. Everybody have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful evening. I'll talk to you tomorrow.